Hey, Try, would you be willing to trade Blasto?
Well, if you want Blasto, then the price starts with Death Crimson and your first round pick.
For Blasto, anything.
Wait, who are you? What podcast is this?
You've got Fun Factor, two old gamers reviewing old video game magazine reviews. I'm Ty Shelter, he's Aiden Moher, and we're two professional writers who grew up loving the video games and video game magazines in the 1980s, 1990s, and 2000s. Every episode, we took a critical look back on the games media that, for better and for worse, inspired us to do what we do. Today, we are joined by a couple of very special guests whose work you might recognize from our very cool intro credits on the video version of the pod, not to mention their terrific work on My Life in Gaming, a deep dive YouTube channel into retro gaming.
Yeah, welcome to the show, Try and Coury. I'm a huge fan of your work. We've both been longtime fans of My Life in Gaming, and of course, we do use your B-roll of magazines and video game controllers and stuff in our intro. You guys were kind enough to let us use that in the intro. And so, this felt like a meeting that was inevitable. And, going back, you have an RGB 101 series on YouTube, and it was instrumental in helping me get into retro gaming, over the past several years and my hooking up my CRTs and my old consoles, which directly led to FunFactor. And so, it's great to be able to talk to people who have these, same interests as us, dig into retro games the way that we do. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us. It's cool to hear stories like that, even though we haven't released a main line entry in that series in a very, very long time. It's nice to see that, or to hear that it's, still means a lot to people.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it was so helpful for me, and I'll still put episodes on now and then, just rewatch them and stuff. So, and then of course all your other stuff, like Ty brought up recently, or just before in the pre-show, your EGM documentary that you released a few months ago, looking at the history of Electronic Gaming Monthly. And so any Fun Factor listeners, if you're not aware of My Life in Gaming, check it out on YouTube. I promise you'll love it. But yeah, thanks for coming.
It was an honor to be invited by that Chrono Trigger avatar that even me, someone who avoids social media like the plague, even I recognize, like, oh yeah, I've seen that Chrono Trigger avatar posted around here and there. That guy's a guy.
Yeah, I took that on my, that's a photograph of my Commodore 1702 monitor with Chrono. So yeah, it's not going anywhere anytime soon. It's pretty clear that we all share a love for retro gaming, despite the PlayStation 5s or, overloaded Steam libraries that we could spend all our time with. I want to ask all of you, Ty, Coury, Try and Try is going to get a little confusing today, but the three of you, like, why? Like, what is it about retro games that makes us devote all this time to creating YouTube shows and podcasts and building these communities around the idea of, like, living with games that have been around as long as we have?
Yeah, I think for me, it's any art, anything that I'm into, I believe it's worth chronicling the thing as it happens. It's worth chronicling what I cared about it, what I like about it, what's cool about it, right? Preserving it. And also, checking to see, like, my growth and the industry's growth and everything, and just preserving, these games, the games that we love are still fun to play, right? And having kids, I had kids pretty young, starting in my early 20s, And so as they were growing up, it was kind of like, hey, let's break into this stuff or still had them hooked up, right? And getting to kind of go, okay, like reviewing things through their eyes, made me go, wow, there's still a lot of stuff here. And the older they get and the more free time I have, the more I have to go back and go, let me actually play these. Let me see how they stack up. And anything that's worth caring about is worth preserving.
For me, it's just the fact that I'm 47, so I was there, like for a lot of it, right? And I grew up playing a lot of these games, and I just never stopped. I love to revisit them, and a lot of the stuff that you might see behind me is stuff that I had when I was a kid. And
your original Chrono Trigger in the box that you bought day one.
Wow.
there it is.
Yeah, there's my day one Chrono Trigger right there.
Look at these two guys. They knew what was up in '95. I did not, as well. Probably get to in the draft.
Yeah,
I think for me,
day one.
Oh yeah. I wish I was smart enough to be into RPGs at that time, but
you'd be a lot richer.
Had to go back. But for me, my understanding of why I'm so attracted to retro games like kind of is ever evolving, right? It's just something I feel, and I know I love this, and I come up with new reasons for why, and kind of like my current thinking on why is because I find the sort of exploratory era of video games and figuring out how to make different concepts work to be so interesting. And there's still so much to explore in that area that I have yet to experience. I think a lot of people, they pick up an old game and they're like, oh, these controls aren't what I'm used to. This camera doesn't work like what I'm used to. I can't interact with these objects in the way that I'm used to. And me, I'm like, ooh, that's different. That's interesting. Like that's a interesting approach to how they were trying to solve this problem.
There's a template for it.
Before there was a template. And in that regard, I find going back and discovering new to me vintage games to be just as fresh and exciting as if I were experiencing them for the back when they were new, because they're still fairly unique, and that, hey, they just don't make games like this anymore. And not to say that new games are bad, but they're a little more standardized, and I kind of like the variety and concepts and approaches to solving those problems and exploring new technologies that we had more of back then, I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of the thesis for a lot of my work, I wrote a book about RPGs a few years ago, and a big core idea in there is that the technological limitations of older games, older systems with lower, power, less just also design language for video games, led to kind of a creativity that's being swallowed up by scope these days.
Mhm.
And so I just like to explore how that inspired people to make games and solve problems in interesting ways, right? Like what makes Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest so interesting is the creators there said, how do we fit wizardry and Ultima on an NES? And it's because that's not easy to do. And, so you have Ultima and wizardry are abstractions of Dungeons and Dragons. So it's as you keep abstracting away from the original source material, how does that change the experience? And when and how does it create something new, which I think is always interesting.
Yeah, but you say there's so much scope these days, but in a lot of ways too, the expectations for hitting a certain level of graphic fidelity eats into that scope. Because I used to think of things like RPGs as being sort of a very abstract kind of gameplay presentation, and that was, in my mind at the time when I finally started getting into RPGs, I'm like, well, some of the animations and stuff is very simple in service of making this bigger, grander adventure and story. And now you look at, Chrono Trigger just feels so much bigger than I would say most RPGs these days, in terms of just the moment to moment, like all the stuff that happens in it. Final Fantasy VII, for as much as it was pushing things forward at the time, it was also still very abstract in its presentation. And now to to create that story up to the standards expected of Square Enix today, you can't do that in a single game. It has to be
Right.
three games
Yeah.
with 3 separate budgets, right? So,
Yes.
and I guess appropriate games for us to be talking about, considering the
Well,
main
that's what makes
subject today.
this period in gaming so interesting, and we'll
Yes.
definitely get to that, because we were seeing
100%.
that leap, right, from
Yes.
sort of high levels of abstraction to more like realism. I do think I've always felt like sticking with RPG stuff like Final Fantasy VI is like, it works in the same way to me as like a stage play, as theater, that there's a high level of abstraction, and as much of the story or the imagery happens in the minds of the player, because they're interpreting, abstract ideas on the screen, and then it happens in our head the same way as reading a book or watching a play versus watching a more realistic movie. And I think that there's a lot of power in that in games, allowing people to have agency within the narrative, without kind of hand feeding them everything too, and creating just agency in terms of like you're controlling the game, but agency also that like your interpretation of what's happening is happening up here. This is like a whole other episode.
It
This
is.
isn't even what we're here to talk about today.
I was just gonna say, I think with the thing over my shoulder, the Virtual Boy, kind of encapsulates what I love, because I was a Virtual Boy day one, super into it, got it on launch day. I own like 4 games, which were the ones that I bought at the time, and I played them, and I liked some of them, and I didn't like, and went, hey, and spent the next 30 years being like, hey, this thing had potential, right? Like, it's not just a punchline. This is a really cool and interesting machine, and there's some games that absolutely hold up, and if you played it in real life, you'd go, wow, right? And I held that opinion, and I said it out loud, but then when we started this show a year ago, I kind of pulled it up out of the basement. Wow, it still works. And I got to re-examine those games in my hands, right? And then I discovered, wow, there's been this whole time this homebrew and modding community, right? So there's been people upgrading these units, repairing these units, making homebrew games for these units. That's all amazing. And then Nintendo drops this replica with all the games, including ones that haven't been released yet in the US or even at all. And now everybody who wants to play them can play them. I'm like, no, it's not the same as original hardware, really, but it's so close, and it's so much cooler than it was at the time.
It's a lot closer than I thought it would be, for sure. Virtual Boy is actually a really interesting thing to bring up, because that's also part of the reason I think it's worth talking about retro games, and taking into the perspectives we have of, playing things back then and also discovering new things today, because people really like to parrot the common refrain, and they may have never actually experienced it themselves. They're like, oh yeah, Virtual Boy, like, oh, that's going to give you a headache. It's like, it's really not. It's actually a really good 3D effect. Like, I'm not denying it may be not great for some people, but it's actually really well done.
Yeah, and so to me, all of those things is what's cool about retro games. Remembering how I felt, telling people I was there and this is how I felt, re-feeling how I felt and reevaluating, and then also going, hey, let's welcome in all of these new people. Let's welcome in these new generations. Let's build and expand upon what there was, and let's make it accessible, because all the games that were fun then are pretty much still fun now.
Yeah, well, I see that Virtual Boy discussion finally got some people chatty in the public chat there. I mean, just bring up Virtual Boy and people are like, heck yeah.
It's like magic every single time. All right. Well, we have to get to the magic of this episode. We are doing something, a format very near and dear to my heart. We are just days away from the NFL draft, which used to mean that I would be working about 100 hours in about 4 days every year. I don't do that quite so strenuously, but I will be in the saddle running quite a bit. So anyway, we are going to be drafting our favorite games from the generation gap window that we covered in season 1, 1995 to 1997, with the My Life in Gaming crew. Stick around. We're going to take a quick break. If you aren't paying for ad-free episodes, aren't a FunFactor Ultra member, don't worry about it. Just listen to Millennium Falc's awesome original music, and we'll get right back to the draft here on FunFactor. Welcome back to Fun Factor, where two old gamers review old video game magazine reviews. Of course, we want you to review us. Do we get a full 5.0 in Fun Factor? Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, and we'll read the best, funniest, kindest, and most entertaining ones on the air.
Okay, so one of the funny dichotomies of this show is that I'm a games writer who likes sports, and Ty is a sports writer who likes games. So it just kind of felt natural that a draft would be, a great addition to Fun Factor's first season as we round out the generation gap. Try and Coury are here to join us because a draft with two people doesn't work. So this is going to be a try. I think I've listened to you do a draft of like Final Fantasy characters.
Yes. I was going to say it's, even a guy like me who hates sports and had no clue what a draft was, how it plays out in practice. When I did on the Still Loading podcast with our friend Josh, yes, he's done it for Final Fantasy. He's done it for Mario, and you like pick the different elements and make your ultimate Final Fantasy or your ultimate Mario game and sort of compare what everyone came up with. And like I going into the recording, even though I was like kind of part of playing it, I was like, I don't understand how this is going to go. And as soon as we got off the ground with it, just like I got it, and I'm like, wow, this is fun. It's I actually can really get along with this sports derived concept. It's fun. It's a fun way to do a podcast.
I shout out to Josh because I've also been on one of his Final Fantasy drafts, and it is a blast, and it's so funny how you have this list in your head, and I'm like, oh, I gotta hit these games, but then I'm worried that everyone else is gonna take them, and it always goes off the rails. It's so much fun.
Oh yeah.
One of the funny things that one of my favorite sports radio stations does, they'll do like goofy drafts on air live, and in 3 minutes, and it'll be like drafting whatever the best bad hot dogs in the NHL or whatever. So whichever places have the worst hot dogs or whatever, or drafting the I don't know, whatever best goalie fights. And so just silly stuff like that. And so I thought it would be fun to, draft games from this era because it was such a transformational era of gaming. I'm going to lay out some ground rules so that we're all on the same page, but also so that listeners, if you want to play along, go for it. Share your draft list in the comments. In the comments? Yeah, the comments on YouTube. Share it in our Discord. Share it on Blue Sky. Let us know what you would pick out of, all the games released in 1995 to 1997, which is the years we'll be covering. It's going to be a snaking draft. So that means we determine the order of picks, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the next round goes 4, 3, 2, 1. And so that sort of gives, the person who picks first won't pick until the fourth pick in the second round, but the person who picks fourth will get the first pick in the second round. It's kind of a way to make it a little more fair. Yeah. You get a little preview of the draft order maybe there. Each game can only be picked once. Revisions are counted together. So, say Street Fighter 2 The World Warrior and Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo count as the same game. So we can't pick both of those. I also acknowledge that neither of those games actually came out in the period we're discussing, but they were the first ones that came to mind as an example. And no need to stick to North American releases. Like if there are other games that you've discovered after this time, like Saturn games, because the Saturn was amazing in Japan. Stuff like, that might have come out in the UK during this period, go for it. It doesn't have to be North American releases. And then after our picks, we're just going to explain why we chose that game. And then we'll try to do a little quick discussion as a group about, the game and what we think of it. We do need to keep things rolling, so this isn't a 3-hour episode. But that's pretty much it. We're going to do 5 rounds, 4 picks per round. So what is that? 20 games total by the end?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Any questions before we start?
No. I've never done one of these before, and I understand how it works.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. You'll pick it up, and I think listeners, you'll pick it up pretty quick here too. After the episode, we'll release our teams, the games that we drafted, and we'll let listeners vote on who they think drafted the best team of classic games. You guys ready?
Man. Let's do it.
Let's go.
Okay, so I used a draft simulator to randomize the order, and drum roll, Ty won first overall and the rights to draft Chrono Trigger. Because you know I would have gone for it. Coury's going to pick second, then me, Aiden, and Mark Try will round things off in the first round and then open the second round. Let's go. Ty, you're on the clock.
Round 1. Fight.
With the first pick in the FunFactor Generation Gap draft, Ty selects Chrono Trigger, Squaresoft, Super Nintendo. Listen, this is the round 1 pick 1. Had to do it. This is the Peyton Manning. This is the Sidney Crosby. This is the LeBron James. There's no getting cute here. Aiden and I have talked many, many times across this show so far about how Chrono Trigger went from maybe the best RPG release that year to number 27 on EGM's list of the 100 best games of all time a year later, to like a fifth of people age 32 to 52 acknowledges it as the number 1 game of all time. So like there's been some survivor bias, there's been some rewritten history, but it's a gigantic game at the time. Absolute masterpiece, my favorite ever. And I acknowledge Andrew Blewett. I believe Lord Ruby is with us in the chat tonight.
Yes.
His video on Chrono Trigger and its weaknesses. I acknowledge the weaknesses pointed out. I still think this game is absolutely, no doubt, slam dunk number 1 for me.
I do not acknowledge the weaknesses in Andrew's video. There's only one flaw in Chrono Trigger, and it is an unavoidable battle in Truce Canyon. But what about you guys? Everybody knows that I love Chrono Trigger. I'm not going to go on about it, but Try and Coury, do you guys have experience with Chrono Trigger?
Oh, of course. Like I said, I got it day 1. I was looking forward to it for a long time. I think that it's a almost like basically a perfect game. You know, I love the fact that you can do everything that there is to do in it in 20 hours. I mean, there's something to be said about games just have zero fat to it, and there's no fat to that game. It's just it's the plot is always moving forward with some really interesting plot twists. Beautiful graphics and music. You know, it's right up there with a list of like 4 or 5 games on the Super Nintendo that I feel are basically perfect games.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I did not play it right away because I didn't really understand RPGs at the time. Friend of mine rented, Final Fantasy, what we called at the time 2 and 3, and Lufia, and the Breath of Fire games all the time. And I'd watch him play, and I'm like, these games have good music and the characters are interesting, but like, why do the enemies not animate? Why do you not actually physically hit the enemies? Like, I just didn't understand the appeal in this gameplay system. And when that friend moved away, he was telling me that he discovered this game Chrono Trigger. He's like, oh man, like you got to try this game. And I, wasn't really aware of emulation or anything at the time. And, I liked Mario RPG. I liked Pokemon, but I thought those were the RPGs for me. I don't think I'm into RPGs as a broader genre. But he was like, oh man, I'm serious. I think this game would change your mind on RPGs. And so I said, okay, I'm going to try Final Fantasy VII at a friend's house. And if I like that, I'll buy Chrono Trigger because, even back then it was like $70 used for just the cart. And I was like, I mean, I could be spending that money on a brand new game. But I said I'd do it if I liked Final Fantasy VII. I did, and the rest is history. I'm a massive RPG fan now. Chrono Trigger is the game that it wasn't my first RPG, but it was like what I would consider like my first RPG gamers RPG that broadened my horizons. Very key game for me, even though I experienced it probably 4 years later.
Yeah, excellent. My story is actually similar. I didn't like RPGs for a long time, and then I was introduced via a babysitter who brought Final Fantasy VI over. That was the first one I was like, oh, this is so cool. But it was Chrono Trigger that like made me fall deeply in love with that genre as well.
I mean, as I like to say a lot of times, that I was very fortunate to know what I liked at that time. I mean, I was in 11th grade when that came out, 10th or 11th grade. And, I had played RPGs starting with starting with Phantasy Star on the Master System. And that game made me realize, what games could be, I suppose. And at that point, I was basically saving up my money and buying every single RPG that I could get my hands on. So when Chrono Trigger came out, I had it pre-ordered for months. It's just, I was very fortunate to be, I guess, ahead of the curve at the time.
Yeah. Not to harp on our first game for way too long, but I just had to shout out Drewby in the chat here saying the pacing is great. And that's the thing I'm always harping on is this era of RPG had such great pacing. And I feel like that's really lost. I don't know if any of you guys played like Bravely Default 2 or anything like that. And like when I got to the 30-hour mark in Bravely Default 2, I'm like, I just finished up like the second town in that game.
Yeah.
How much more stuff would have happened by now in a Super Nintendo or even a PS1 RPG, right? Like
well, and even the ones that are that short, it was way better actual pacing and plotting and storytelling, where you're discovering things. You know where you're going next. You know what you want to get to the next plot.
You
point.
want to get there, and you're never in each place like way too long. My opinion is that like Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy IV are basically like fighting for like the best paced RPG of all time. I mean, oof.
20 hours. 20 hours
So
is the sweet
snappy.
spot.
So snappy, so good.
Before we move on, Coury, you have the next pick. But one of the things when I went back and started playing retro games again, after kind of like dipping out for a decade, was how fast those Super Nintendo RPGs went. I thought of them as being so big, and I was used to PlayStation 2 and RPGs beyond. Like I had just played Skyrim or whatever. And then I started playing, and I like ripped through Final Fantasy VI, and it was like 35 hours, and I had done everything, and I was like, oh, that was like amazing. And then I play Illusion of Gaia, and it's 11 hours, or I play Chrono Trigger again, and it's under 20 to do everything. And I think that RPGs have a reputation for being big and long and bloated, whether they're like PC RPGs like Baldur's Gate or they're console RPGs, but they don't have to be. Even Final Fantasy VII, it's like I played through it, did everything. It was like 45 hours. Could have probably gotten through the story in 30, which is even longer than a lot of those games. So there is something to be said about just like not brevity, but like just tight design. Coury, you're up. Pick number 2. You're on the clock.
So my first pick for my draft is Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
Ooh.
I mean, this is a game that came out a month after Final Fantasy VII in the U.S. Is the first game that I bought with my employee discount when I got a job at Electronics Boutique in my first year of college. This game, totally, changed the template of what Castlevania games had been up to that point, and it went into a genre that was not over bloated like it is today. Making something like I hadn't played another game like that since Super Metroid at that point. And I love Super Metroid, and I was so excited to see that this played the same way. And, Castlevania Symphony of the Night has one of the greatest plot twists, I think, in video game history.
Oh, yeah.
Where, you think you're done, but you're not. Just a great game. It's plays great, and it's been imitated many times. Thousands of times probably at this point. And I'd be really hard pressed to think of something that, surpasses it.
Yeah. Excellent choice. And I think it comes back to that previous discussion we just had where like its tight design and its concise playtime are such a strength. I just played through Hollow Knight for the first time. Brilliant game, but it's like 45 hours long, which is crazy. Like I could beat Super Metroid and Castlevania Symphony of the Night multiple times each in that playtime. And I think that, looking back at that golden era of, when the Metroidvania genre was sort of like being born, that tight experience was so important to it. Like when I set up, I got a new monitor a few years ago, and I set it up, hooked up my Super Nintendo to it. It was a Commodore monitor. I was like, I'm going to check out some of my favorite games. So I put on Super Metroid, and then I just like beat it. Like I was just like
Yeah.
I not in one sitting, but it was like I was gonna mess around with it, and then all of a sudden it was like I had just beat it. And Castlevania Symphony is the same. It's like I sit down to like just mess around with it, and then all of a sudden I'm 3 hours in. I'm like, this is just I can't stop. It still retains that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I actually hadn't played Super Metroid all that long ago for the first time when I played Symphony of the Night. I my local rental store was clearing out their Super Nintendo games to make room for Dreamcast games. So it was around 99. I got Super Metroid complete in box for $6.
Amazing.
Immaculate condition too, which you wouldn't really think for a rental copy, but it sure was. And at first I didn't really understand it, and then I kind of, because I never really played a game like that before,
Yeah.
where like you just kind of like feel your own way through this world. And then I tried it again sometime later, and then it just clicked. I'm like, holy cow, this is amazing. And I got PS1 fairly late, so it wasn't long after that, I'm like, oh, I hear everyone talk that, the Castlevania game on PlayStation's really good.
Yeah.
I could get it for, I think, $20 at the time. And so I bought it, and I knowing nothing about it, and I'm immediately like, oh,
Yeah.
it's like Super Metroid.
But with like RPG stuff. grafted on, which was
so it was
compelling to me.
different. And
Yeah.
that was such an exciting turn that I wasn't bothered by how it was different from the Castlevanias that I knew.
Right.
And I think as time went on, it was kind of like, oh, it'd be nice to get like a return to the more actiony Castlevanias. But I think it's probably one of the few, if not only, times in history that a sequel has pretty much completely changed its genre, and people weren't mad about it. And in fact, they loved it maybe even more.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of surprising. I love
Yeah.
both. These days, I think I overall prefer Classicvania to Metroidvania, but I do have a lot of love for the Metroidvanias. I'm replaying Portrait of Ruin via the Dominus collection right
cool.
now,
Nice.
actually. So
All right. Well, I hope everybody watching noticed my lightning quick reflexes avoiding the spoiler, because as we discovered live on stream a few months ago, I played one of the Game Boy Advance Castlevania games and remembered it as being Symphony of the Night. And so I was discussing it, and Aiden was like, wait, dude, that was only on PlayStation. And I was like, what? And so I have never played Symphony of the Night. And so when Corey was like, oh, that great plot twist, and I was like, headphones off. So
I didn't say it. I didn't say
say what it was.
I just made sure.
but-
Okay, great.
yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Well, Aiden, you are on the clock. And we, again, I figured we'd be talking more about this. The NFL does this too. Each pick is 15 minutes in the first round, and it doesn't need to be, but they make it take 3 hours anyway. And then by the third round, they're 5 minutes, and they're snap, snap, snap. They don't take 5 minutes. So
Well, we're picking the best stuff in the first
Oh,
couple
yeah,
rounds.
absolutely.
So
Each of these
there's
could
stuff
and
there's
has,
the
many
most
of
to
these
talk
have been
about.
their own episodes. But I'm going to go a little off the board here for me and my taste. I'm known for loving RPGs, console RPGs. But with my first pick, I'm going to go with Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island, which
yeah.
for me is just one of the best platformers of all time. And it's a game that, like Try was saying, it kind of took the formula of the original, or like, the previous Mario games, but really shook it up and turned it into a slower paced, more exploratory game that by all rights, like, could have been a disaster, but works so well. And the fact that, like, there's still debate over whether it's a mainline Mario game, despite having Super Mario World 2 in the title. The fact
Doesn't
that
in Japan.
it doesn't know. That's fair. That's fair. But I just like that they did something so bold late in the Super Nintendo's life with Yoshi's Island. And, there was all the talk about how it was originally going to be like Donkey Kong, I think, like pre-rendered, but then they switched over to the cartoony graphics. It gets so much flack at the time. So we did an episode about a Game Players issue where they reviewed Chrono Trigger. It got like a 95%. Yoshi's Island was also in there. And they're like ragging on it for its bad graphics. They give it like a 76%, which was like what, tied 2% higher than Clockwork. What was it?
Bug it was.
Yeah.
Bug was 74.
So they're like, and so just in hindsight, I think it's one of those games that like took so many swings. and risks with a successful formula. Like Mario, there was no more successful formula than Mario at the time, but they threw it all out the window and created something that I think still is kind of unmatched in the same way that Symphony of the Night is unmatched in that, you know, in its genre. And Yoshi's Island, it might be a little too long, would be my only criticism of it, but otherwise it just remains such a joy to play all these years later.
You stole my pick.
This is gonna
But I
end.
get to talk about it anyway.
Yes,
This is
you do.
this is the snake draft curse, because I'm gonna start watching a bunch of my picks come off the
Oh,
board,
yeah.
and there's nothing I can do about it.
Yep. You know, this is a very important game for me because, you know, the 95 was the first full year of me owning 16-bit hardware. I only had an NES and a Game Boy for the longest time, and got Super Nintendo in late 94, Christmas 94. And Yoshi's Island, I kind of consider the first game that I was like actively anticipating ahead of release with the intention to buy it like as soon as it is in the store. Because I just remember clicking on, you know, I now know they were powered by Laserdisc, but you know, those kiosks in Toys R Us that you could like push the button and, you know, a trailer would play for different Nintendo games. Yeah, I remember just seeing the trailer for that in the store there before it came out, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I have to have this as soon as it's out. And I remember
Awesome.
calling Toys R Us on the day I was pretty sure it was supposed to come into the stores. You know, we had ship dates back
Yeah,
then.
there were
right?
no hard release dates back
And
then.
on the East Coast, it was usually 2 to 3 days after the ship date that it was actually in the store. But I just remember calling Toys R Us, and they had it, and you know, I hung up the phone. I'm just like, yes, like I mean, this was like my first like big like day one game, you know. So I was
Awesome.
pumped for it, and you're right, it is so different. And in retro, you know, at the time, I mean, I considered it my favorite game at the time, but in retrospect, I find it to be less replayable than the more mainline Mario games. Those are just kind of a little more quick action,
Yeah.
whereas Yoshi's Island is much more exploratory. A big part of the fun is like searching for all the secrets and unlocking the bonus levels and stuff like that. But still just a visual, audio, you know, feast, tight controls, fantastic boss design, even though they're like
Yes.
way too easy today,
Yeah.
because I know exactly how to beat all of them. But just an incredible game, and definitely a landmark in my you know, following games closely kind of life, I guess.
Your life in gaming.
Yeah, my life is good.
It's
All right,
it's
you're up.
okay. It's I mean the game is fine. I didn't play it.
Really? I thought like
no.
I mean, I
just-
like it. I
mean,
like
I-
it, but it's I didn't. I
didn't
had
know it was
the,
possible to feel. I didn't know you felt this way, Corey.
It's fine.
My
I've
life
only
in
played
gaming is
through it
over.
once.
Oh no.
I've only played through it once, and the first time that I played it, the only time I've finished it is on the Game Boy Advance when it was Super Mario Advance 3
That's probably why
Yoshi
you don't
Island.
like it.
And because I didn't buy it when it came out, and you know, playing it on the Super Nintendo is just so much better. Like that's so much. It's such a better place to play it. But I mean, I've only finished it that first time on the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah.
I like it, and I like what it's doing, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
controls
Like I
are
wish
just
that
mad.
I wish
Like,
that I
that's-
had the
yeah.
love for it
Play
as
it.
other people do.
Play it on a CRT on original
Yeah, well, I mean,
hardware. Like
yeah.
it's just you gotta.
Yeah.
I'd
I-
be curious to hear what your opinion was. Like kind of
I mean, I
going back.
probably played half of it
Yeah.
on the Super Nintendo, but I've just never felt compelled. And maybe I should make that a priority, is to revisit it all the way through.
All right, Mark. Well, with your top choice off the board, where are you going for your first
Oh
round
man,
pick?
I get to do a double pick.
Oh, that's right. You do.
I'm going to go, for now at least, I'm going to continue to go chronological. I'm going to skip ahead to Donkey Kong Country 2,
Oh, okay. Okay.
which
right.
I mean, contender for the best platformer of all time, in my opinion. I I I think there's a lot more. Recently I saw some people being like, "Oh, I'm so sick of saying Donkey Kong Country 2 is one of the best games of all time." So, maybe things have come back around for Donkey Kong Country because I felt like I used to always have to like stand up for it and be like, "No, it wasn't just about the graphics. Like they are the most immaculately designed platformers ever made. Like just the controls are so tight and responsive, and your abilities aren't like overly bloated. They're just, and the level design, and I think this is where Donkey Kong Country 2 really shines, is um you know every level, this could be a pejorative term, but every level has a gimmick. Every level does something that no other level does, but it's
Right.
done in such a way where it is immediately intuitive within the constraints of the game's controls. I would say the only exceptions might be like the levels where you're like being chased by the ghost on the roller coaster and you have to like hit the barrels to like either like increase time or cause the gates to open or close. That wasn't immediately intuitive, like what's going on here. But for the most part, like 99%, like you understand what to do with the different challenges the game sends you. And all of the Donkey Kong Country games are great at sense of discovery and great at just kind of almost giving you a sixth sense about what is up ahead, in terms of just how they kind of telegraph things with level design and, kind of increase the challenge mathematically. You've got two Kremlings, and then you've got two Kremlings and a B, and then two Kremlings and two Bs. They kind of fully explore the extent of various patterns and challenges over the course of a level, and then you move on to a different concept, but it all works within the constraints of these very simple, very finely tuned controls. Of course, an incredible soundtrack by David
Yes.
Wise.
Yeah.
Personally, like I've never like been away from these games. Like I've never like gone away from a time and been like, oh, wow, this looks bad now. Like I've like it never like left my mind. Like I've just always known what these games look like, and so there was never like a whiplash of like going back to it. So I think the graphics still look totally fine. I don't hate how these look, but Donkey Kong Country 2, I think it's the best one. I think all three are great. I'm a big fan of 3 as well, but um, 2's the best.
I think it's such a good example of a sequel that knew what its predecessor did well and poorly, and fixed all the stuff that was
1000%.
wrong,
1000%.
and just like nailed all the stuff that was good. It was just, perfect example of a sequel, like an iterative sequel. And that, like you said, the music is just, you can't bring it up without the music. It's just so good.
100% agree. I was gonna say I found one borderline annoying in places. It was like presentation was incredible, and then there were a lot of sections where I was like, this is not so fun. I don't like the controls of this, or I don't like what the level is doing, or I did like this feels unfair, or it doesn't play as good as it looks. Was kind of my takeaway from 1 and 2. Is definitely a huge step up in that arena for me, at least, and of course graphically still awesome.
Yeah, I think it's a great game. I only got the first one when it came out. I did not buy this one.
Yeah.
It's very odd to me that these are yearly releases for 3 years in a row.
Yeah,
And it's kind of impressive that they were able to just release them annually.
very impressive.
I was gonna say, we were talking about scope, and we went from Mark Cerny was saying that at Sega that they put 3 people on each game for 3 months for Sega Master System. And then now we have each game must take 7 years and have a $200 million budget.
Yeah.
And somewhere in the middle, we got 3 mainline Final Fantasies in 4 years. Like, what can we? Let's dial that back to the middle, please.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be nice. It'd be nice. Most people want that.
I mean, that's all most people are going to get with the way that like game console prices are going.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna have to like scale back because nobody can afford to kind of scale up anymore.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, we've got to get to round 2. Round 1 is complete in the books. We're gonna wrap the draft order back around. Try will get his second pick in a row. Sit tight.
Round 2. Fight.
All right, round 2 of the Fun Factor Generation Gap Game Draft. We are on the clock. Try from my life in gaming. What is your second pick?
I'm going to keep on being a Nintendo fanboy for a while because, hey, it's
Valid.
what I had at the time, right?
Valid.
Um, oh man, it's risky, continuing to go chronological here, but I'm going to go with Super Mario RPG. This was, as I already mentioned, Chrono Trigger was like kind of what brought me into the fold properly with RPGs, but Mario RPG was like the first one that I like really got into and kind of helped me start to understand the appeal. At the time I'm just like playing it because it's a Mario game and it looked awesome and it's using the same technology as Donkey Kong Country 3 or Donkey Kong Country for the graphics. And, I got to play that. And I was nervous though, because I had no idea what RPG even meant. And I asked a friend, and he's like, "Oh, I think that means it's like Final Fantasy." And I'm like, "Oh no."
What have they
Yeah.
done to me?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
'cause
The
I didn't,
betrayal.
I thought they looked so boring at the time. And I remember, I rented it day one. And I was just like, okay. My friend went to the bathroom while playing Final Fantasy 3 once, and he gave me the controller and he said, "Oh, just mash the A button." And I'm like, okay, I'm in Bowser's castle and I'm just mashing the A button. And then, that wasn't working fine, Bowser. Then I'm like, oh, I can select the chandelier chain. And, this was honestly really kind of not just getting me started on RPGs, but really like kind of event trigger driven games in general. This was kind of a strange new world for me because I was mostly playing platformers, like puzzle games, like not really anything with story or NPCs to talk to, things to buy, money to worry about, equipment to equip, because I would, you have this world map and, Toad says at the beginning, he says, "Oh, well, go get the princess back." Well, I'd already read like what the setup for the story was and Nintendo Power and stuff. Like I knew that when the sword falls, Mario, Bowser, and the princess are all flung in different directions. I knew she wasn't there. So I didn't understand like, oh, I can go back to like I have to do what Toad tells me to do. I have to go back. Like I was stuck there for a for a surprise, like, I don't know, probably 20 minutes. Like, why is the next level not opening up on the world map? Like it just, and so this was really like rewiring my brain, my video game brain, for so many things. And so, it just made a huge impact. And the music from Yoko Shimomura, obviously fantastic. And the remake came out on Switch a few years ago, and man, still holds up. I mean, we're talking about these nice breezy 20-hour RPGs. This is a nice breezy like I don't know 12 maybe 15-hour RPG. I didn't actually know how much time it took in the past because the original version doesn't have a clock in it. So who knows how much time I spent on it originally, but just a hugely, hugely, hugely important game for me.
I think Super Mario RPG. I stole your pick. You stole my pick. That was going to be my next pick. It's just a fabulous example of like that crossover RPG that Square was searching so desperately for with like Final Fantasy IV, and how they like made the easy type for North America. They made Mystic Quest. They tried all these things to like make a newcomer friendly RPG, and then they just had to do a Mario one. And like a lot of what you're, describing, I think is what worked so well as like a gateway RPG for a lot of people. And I like the way that they implemented some stuff from Mario. Like there are levels, right? Like they have a node-based map instead of like something like Final Fantasy VI with like an open world map and stuff. But just the humor hits so hard. The writing is so good. The fact that the
so
remake
funny.
came out and like the writing's almost like 1-to-1.
They basically used the script. You know,
Yeah.
this was also kind of the first time. I mean, like I said, I wasn't really playing a lot of story-driven games, but like I was like aware enough at the time that like, you know, the games I loved came from Japan and someone translated this. And that person like had to have like enough of an understanding of, you know, how to tell a joke in English for this to be funny. I thought it was so funny. I was like, I want the guy who wrote this, the translation for this, to do every game. And little did I know he was doing a whole lot of them at the time. Actually, old Ted Woolsey. I love that guy. I think he was doing incredible work at a time when he had no one to guide him. He had to be his own guide.
Yep.
And being a trailblazer here, he did top-notch work. I think love his stuff. And
I'm a big Woolsey fan. I know Ty is too. I'd love to get him on for a guest episode. If anyone
I
knows
know.
Ted
I
Woolsey.
mean, he was always one of the top ideas in my head for, you know, someone I'd love to interview.
Oh my
someday.
gosh, yeah, absolutely. Any thoughts on Super Mario RPG, Ty and Coury?
Yeah, it's a pretty good game. I didn't actually. I played it. I rented it when it came out.
It's one of those games you could beat on a rental, too.
Right,
Yeah.
but I actually I didn't. Since you don't get a manual with it, I didn't understand the timing of the attacks. I didn't realize that was a thing because, I mean, a lot of the RPGs that I played up to that point didn't really have anything like that in it. You know, I think that Earthbound does, but I didn't understand. I didn't really play Earthbound at the time.
Wait, Earthbound does?
Earthbound,
Maybe
well,
it's 3 that does.
yeah, Mother 3 has timing-based stuff.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
awful
I'm
if you
mixing
play
it
on
up in my head.
emulation. But one thing I thought was funny when Clair Obscur came out last year and everybody was like going on about the battle system in Clair Obscur.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, it's cool, but it's just a Super Mario RPG battle system. Like, this has been around for like 30 years, guys. But yeah, it was definitely like, it was new, and it was one of those instances almost like we were kind of talking off air before the show about how sometimes when you have more knowledge about something, it almost makes it harder if you're in a game or you're in a podcasting software that like expects you to know nothing. And so if you're familiar with RPGs and then all of a sudden there was all the timing that you're expected to do, like you just don't even think to do that sort of thing. But
I just added it right now to my Tales from the backlog because I have not played it.
The Switch version is really good, Ty.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it you know, it's a pretty short game too, which is nice.
Awesome. Aiden, you're on the clock.
Okay.
Pick 2.
I'm going to take a heavy hitter off the board with my second pick. I'm going to go with Final Fantasy VII.
Uh-huh.
I can't I don't think I'm going to get that.
Run to
if I
the
let it go
podium.
for another round.
Run to the podium.
Yeah. So, I mean, Final Fantasy VII, I've kind of had like an up and down relationship with since its release. It was one of those games that at the time blew my mind, changed my idea of what video games could do. I loved it dearly. And then as I got older and I got more cynical and I liked these or that or whatever, you know, I didn't like Final Fantasy VII. But then with the remake trilogy, you know, it came out and I really liked remake and I replayed Final Fantasy VII and I just realized like game was just so far ahead of its time, not just in presentation, not just in the way that Hironobu Sakaguchi wanted to like implement visual, like film style storytelling. You know, not just the way that it had pre-rendered backgrounds, which I think are like a lost art, but like just its approach to like anti-capitalist and pro-environmental themes. Or like when I replayed it, I was like, this is why I am who I am. In large, like in many, many ways, like, you know, like it shaped me as I would have been 13 playing it. Right. And it's like the fact that it hit as hard as it did in 2024, whenever I replayed it, just really speaks well to its themes and its ideas. So yeah, I can't let Final Fantasy VII pass. It's become one of my favorites again, I think.
I'd say I
mean,
was
if you didn't
never
pick that, I was definitely gonna do that.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like my like, let's not be a total Nintendo fanboy pick, but it's gone now. But yeah, I mean, as I already mentioned, this was kind of like the bridge game that kind of made me an RPG fan. Like I was like, okay, I'll try this. If I like it, I'll drop that $70 on Chrono Trigger, right? So and later on, a friend at school. Actually, I mean, what's kind of funny about it is we actually weren't really that close. Like he was kind of part of my friend group, but we kind of got on each other's nerves, and so we weren't actually that close. But we kind of bonded over Final Fantasy VII, and I had seen a good chunk of the game watching another friend play it, and thought I kind of knew how all the story went, and we would talk about me and this one friend would talk about in school, and then completely unprompted, the day after he beat it, he brought in his PlayStation with the game and controller and memory card and said, you keep this until you beat the game. So
Nice.
I that was how I was able to play through it, probably a couple of years before I had my own PlayStation. And I've never been down on Final Fantasy VII. There've definitely been periods of time where it's cool to be cynical about it.
Yeah.
But I always thought it was my personal favorite pick has usually been FF6. That's kind of there's so many different ones that could be vying for the top spot, but my default answer is 6. But I've never been down on 7. I think it just the music and the world it creates and the characters. I mean, you look at how these characters are portrayed in the remake series, and they still stand out as just so iconic, so special, just a complete lightning in a bottle sort of creation. I think like how and I honestly I didn't think that Square, and especially Nomura, really had it to get the right tone, because I didn't think Advent Children had the right vibe, the right tone. I like Dirge of Cerberus as a game, but I thought like all of like the deep ground characters and stuff, that like the new characters that Nomura created in the compilation of Final Fantasy VII material, like they never felt like they were part of that original world. And so with Nomura as creative director, I was just kind of like, I don't know if they're going to be able to capture that right tone, but they did.
Yeah.
Like the game has its flaws. The original game has much better pacing, but like they nailed the tone. They got that perfect balance of like very serious, dark, future fantasy mixed with just like complete absurdity and silliness, and they recaptured the vibe of that game shockingly successfully. And I think it can still stand as a lesson to just kind of the fun ways that you could develop a game scenario today, but it's so hard to do that, as we already mentioned, at the scale and level of quality that's expected out of Square Enix these days. It's okay to make Final Fantasy 17 an HD2D game. Just saying, I'd be okay with that. Like, give us that
backgrounds,
ATV. Give us that grand scope again by dialing in your like technical budget.
I mean, Square Enix has to be looking at Clair Obscur, right? Which wasn't a small game. It wasn't the small team and
it was
small
a $50 game.
Wasn't like like it still cost millions of dollars, but like it cost a lot less than Final Fantasy 16. And they have to be looking at that, thinking, okay, what can we do?
Like maybe we don't need to be doing. We don't need to rethink it every single time. Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah, that's a whole conversation for an episode. I'd love about Final Fantasy's idea that it has to like reinvent itself, because that wasn't really a thing until later on. But anyway,
as opposed to something like Dragon Quest that relishes in just being the same.
Absolutely.
Final Fantasy VII. It's an amazing game. I was following it for a long time up till its release, and it came out when I had just started college. And it's funny for me because it was like, oh, you mean I can just not go to school or go to class today and play this? Like, and nobody, I don't have to talk my mom into it or something like that. I gotta stay home. I can just go in the middle of the day and pick up the game. A friend of mine who was also excited about it, was able to go. He had some time in between classes, and he says, "I just went to the store and bought it as they opened up the shipping carton for it." Yeah, so it's a great game, and I think it holds up extremely well. I know there's a lot of people, I think, that have come to this years later and said, "Oh, I just can't handle the how the characters look in the overworld, as even opposed to like the battles and stuff." But I think it's a nice stepping stone. I actually prefer it compared to the really realistic look of something in 8.
Yeah.
And just the world, the fact that it spends all this time in one area for 3 hours, and you think like, oh, is this like how many more places can they do like this? And then you get outside, and it's just this whole RPG world. It's still some technology, but not nearly as much technology as you had in the in Midgar, and it's just. I could talk about this game endlessly, and I think there's very little left to be said about this game that hasn't already been said by everybody.
Yeah, and especially not me, since we did a few episodes ago, we reviewed every review of Final Fantasy VII for our season finale, every print review and some digital reviews that we could get our hands on, and even one that we couldn't actually get our hands on. So my hipster takes on 7 are there. Coury, round 2, pick 3. What's your pick?
I mean, there's one more heavy hitter. I mean, there's 2 more heavy hitters, and I know that this one's gonna be taken if I don't take it. So I'm just gonna go with the first Resident Evil.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, so before this game came out, I had played a game called Alone in the Dark. I played it on the 3DO.
Yeah.
And I thought
That's
this would be really cool if, the characters maybe looked a little bit better. And then one day I went over to a friend's house who had gotten a PlayStation, and I didn't have one. I was still like completely content with my Genesis, Sega CD, and Super Nintendo. And he said, I rented this game, Resident Evil, which I had read about in magazines, because I was very tuned into. I bought every single magazine I could every single month until I was well into college. So when Resident Evil 1 came out, I guess that was 96, right? Or yes, 96. So I mean, I would have been a senior in high school, and I sat and would go to his house every single day after school and watch him play through the whole game.
Yep.
And so I didn't even play it myself until I bought a PlayStation during the summer of '97 in anticipation for Final Fantasy VII. And so at that point I could get the director's cut, and I thought it was amazing, and it it's been outdone by the remake, but the remake would not exist if not for the groundwork laid by this. And I think that it's a very creepy game, and it does a lot of things that I guess that I was not expecting out of games. Is a lot more cinematic than any other game that I'd played at the time, especially since I guess at that time the idea of something cinematic would be an FMV game
Yes.
on the Sega CD,
Yes.
right? And this kind of takes that and mixes it with actual gameplay.
Yeah. I think like we saw examples in point and click adventures, stuff like Alone in the Dark, Flashback. But a lot of those were like light on actual like threat or conflict, or like you couldn't die in a lot of those, right? Like they were slow paced, you're supposed to stop and think. Whereas Resident Evil really took that idea of like a point and click adventure, but then threw zombies in there. And it was like, oh, you're going to have to think, but you're also going to have to react. You're also going to have to figure out how to get rid of these zombies and face threats as you're trying to solve puzzles. And that was just such a like fascinating combination of taking conflict from like action games and melding it into the idea of like puzzle based point and click adventure games, which was great. It was another one like you. I didn't have a PlayStation, so I watched friends play through it. And didn't play it myself until post Final Fantasy VII when I got a PlayStation. But it was one of those ones that like I just never got sick of, because it was the atmosphere. Like again, it's not very long, right? It's a pretty short game, and that like was really to its benefit, especially because like when you had multiple protagonists. Was that in the
Mhm.
first one?
That
Or
was
it
two.
the
Yeah,
second one?
yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
No,
You know,
Chris
play
and
as
you
Jill.
could pick.
or
You could pick.
Chris.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Jill and Chris, of course. Yeah. So like, I don't know, just the fact that it was this game that was short, but also meant to be experienced multiple ways from multiple
Right.
perspectives was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't really have any exposure to the first Resident Evil until the second game was already out. And so kind of my first exposure to it was mostly just I'd watched a friend play a good bit of 2 and probably 3 by that point as well. And then at some point he got, one of the versions of Resident Evil director's cut. Unfortunately, I think it might have been the DualShock version. But literally the only thing he wanted to show me in it was the opening FMV with the cheesy
Yes.
live action, the
Yes.
bad dubbing, and like he was just like, "Oh, dude, you gotta see this. It's so good." And, oh man, we laughed, but that was all he really wanted to show me. So I
That's
didn't really
hilarious.
fully experience it until the GameCube remake came out, because I kind of thought like it's kind of like what I was saying earlier. Like people, often parrot the the popular refrain without actually experiencing for themselves.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
heard so many people say like, "Oh, tank controls are terrible. Ugh, tank controls. Ugh, I can't deal with that." They were almost immediately like outdated. Because there were already so many people saying, "Oh, I can't deal with that." And then like I finally play Resident Evil for myself. I'm like, "Oh, it's fine."
Yeah.
Tank controls are fine.
Yeah.
They make sense. I understand why they use them with these like preset camera angles. And so that kind of put me off. And then I played the GameCube remake and I'm like, wow, okay, like I love this. Like this, series is totally my jam. And and now it's like one of the few, AAA series that I still like buy day one, and it's still very important to me. But I think, Corey, you said that, it's been outdone by the remake, but I think it's very much to this original game's credit that I was afraid for a long time of going back to the original version. I mean, director's
Mhm.
cut. And when I finally did, actually on the PlayStation 3, via the PS1 download, I, it holds up. It's
Yes.
great on its own. It stands
Yeah.
apart as its own thing, and I don't think Resident Evil fans who are curious about digging into the full history of the series shouldn't necessarily think that they should just pick one version. Oh, which one should I play? The original or director's cut or the remake? Play remake and director's cut.
Yeah.
I think they stand. They both remain excellent.
Yeah, and that new one, or the original, was just released on Steam yesterday. It's
Oh yeah, it did just
$5.
1, 2, and 3.
Although it does
Yeah.
have some annoying DRM, so get it on GOG.
I think like one thing that's interesting about Resident Evil as a series is, after 4, like 4 was such a big hit, and then they sort of like tried to chase the wrong lessons from 4 and turned it into more of like
Yes.
an arcadey experience that did not work. And they went back and they said, you know what, this didn't work. And they've started, going back and adopting more of what worked from those early games, and the fact that that first game found a formula that like, all these years later is still so so interesting and like compelling and structurally just works, is a testament to what they were doing way back then.
Absolutely. And, I had my annoyances with the tank controls, as I think Aiden and I discussed at one point this season.
Yeah.
There was one time where the camera angle shifted to like an overhead shot of it's a zigzag in a hallway. And I navigated that with the tank controls. It cuts and there's just a dog. And I was like, oh shit. Okay. And I pulled, and Jill pulls back to fire, and that pulled her head back
the
past
camera,
the
yes.
threshold, and it went back to the overhead shot, and then the dog
Yeah.
just and I was firing blind, and the dog just
It will do that.
and
Yeah.
so
Will
it's
do
like
that.
there were issues like that, but it
They're
did
figuring it out, though. They're
ultimately-
figuring it out.
right. It did add ultimately added this. And hey, the next time I did that, I went, okay. I reloaded the save. I did it. I shot the dog. Great. That's better than Tomb Raider, where you can walk into the same cave full of wolves 6 times and die every time because the controls just suck, right? Like, because like the aiming is just bad. So like that's like to me that was something that like added to it. Ultimately, I think it was just an incredible achievement, and it was the most genuinely scary game. I think it was the first genuinely scary game.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to those dogs crashing through the windows.
The dogs crashing through the windows, but also, I mean, there's so many more. The environmental storytelling. It's beyond cliche now. But there's the unofficial history of Resident Evil that's the subtitle. The head title is Itchy Tasty, because everybody remembers reading that page of that book and like dropping their controller because they're like, dude. Oh my Lord, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like that, and the crow like echoing the birds, like the Hitchcock scene from the birds. There's so many just genuinely chilling moments in that. The fact that they achieved that despite some of the cornier stuff, the terrible voice acting, all these other weird technical things, like it's just such a good game.
The terrible voice acting is like part of that special like mixture that just makes it mwah, though,
I just heard like 2 days ago about a fan film that like reunited the original cast.
Yeah.
I've never seen it, but I want to watch that now.
We got to meet the actors of Barry Burton and Chris Redfield in Midwest Gaming Classic.
Barry was so drunk.
He was so drunk.
Seems on brand.
Yeah.
He was just in character.
I mean, he I don't really care about like celebrities, like actual like normal people, celebrities that people go wild about. I was so nervous about meeting Barry Burton. Let me tell you, like my heart was pounding. Like Coury and I, like we got to the convention early. We're like going up this elevator, and I just like turn around, and there's just like I'm just like Burton is behind. I'm like slyly taking a picture. I'm like,
we were like he's like taking pictures, and we'd always like take pictures if we like saw him walking from really far away.
Incredible.
So I can share pictures of that.
Amazing.
Of that happening. I'm not sure.
All right, we are to the.
I'm sure there's one with Try in the picture, but I'm not sure if I was photographed with him. I don't know.
Your shoulder was photographed with him.
Yeah.
Behind on the escalator.
All right. Well, I hate to rush. We are on the last pick of round 2. There's 3 more full rounds to go. So I'm technically supposed to be done.
Yes, you're up here. Pick 4.
I'll
round
go quick.
2. Ty,
So
you're on the clock.
I am on the clock, and like every NFL team, I'm gonna run and say, listen, we had a first round grade on this one. Can't believe this one is still here. Absolutely thrilled to make Wipeout a Ty Shelter game. And I guess a couple of things on this one. Number 1, Wipeout XL is better than Wipeout in basically every way that matters, and was also within the release window. I could have gone Wipeout XL. If you choose to believe that I went with Wipeout XL, go for it. But Wipeout for me, as I've discussed recently and repeatedly on this show, was the somehow expression of a game that I had always kind of had in my mind since I was like 8 or 9. Like I believed a game like this could exist. And then when it did, it was not only exactly what I wanted, but also so much cooler than I ever could have imagined. And it was cool in a real way, in a way that cool people thought was cool, in a way that cooler older kids thought was cool. When I was like 14, 21-year-olds, cool 21-year-olds was like, I've never played a video game before in my life, and this game is cool. And so it will always have that special place in my heart. Like I said, XL better technically across the board, better gameplay, way better balanced weapons, way more replayability, the addition of Piranha, all that other stuff, but there's just still an aesthetic. The music, and as we discussed with Chris and Eric from Retrograde Amnesia, the techno soundtrack legitimately got me into weird techno music. So like it across the board, happy to take Wipeout at this spot. All right,
was that a situation where you could was that a situation where you could put the game CD into a real CD player and listen to the
Yes.
songs?
Yes, and that was a
That's awesome.
huge part of it. That was a
Yeah.
huge part of it. The Red Book audio, and there's a couple others on my draft board where I'm like, big part of this was that I could put it in the CD player and crank the
Well,
tunes.
Castlevania Symphony of the Night, you could.
Cool.
I'm pretty sure too.
Cool. All right. I can tell this is very funny because my board, there's a wildly disproportionate amount of racing games. I'm guessing most other people didn't play, which is why we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to wrap around to my next pick, the top pick of round 3, right here on Fun Factor.
Round 3. Fight.
All right, third round. We are getting deep into it now. I get back my second pick in a row here, and I've got Chrono Trigger and Wipeout. And I'm going to go to a genre that none of us have touched because it's a genre that basically didn't exist until it came out. I am taking Sony's Parappa the Rapper.
Oh, interesting.
Again, probably high for this group. The draft graders are going to be wondering why I went so high, but I just couldn't let this fall through another 6 picks just in case. It's iconic, it's brilliant, it's visionary, and from an intentional strategy of Sony by going, let's pair this like electronic music guy who's done some weird, cool little games with an American artist and just see what they do. Right. And what came out was so original, so iconic. And for me, I'm big into music, as you can see by the musical instruments behind me. One of my babysitters, when I was like 4, 5, 6, her tween boys were super into the Beastie Boys. So I've been listening to hip hop, since I was little. And like this game has such great heart and such great storytelling. And like even the stuff that's corny or doesn't land today is still just adorable. And my kids all love it too, because it just like that heart just shines through. Super fun game, super cool, super original, and even its flaws just make it better, in my opinion.
I really like Parappa because I think it's emblematic of Sony's aggressive entry into the gaming market. They weren't afraid to try things and give people opportunities to just like make weird stuff that I had never played anything like Parappa until that point. It was on my list. Probably not high enough that I would end up taking it, but it was definitely one that I think back to that period on the PlayStation, and it's like I have strong memories of playing that with friends.
I have no rhythm, so this game is like basically unplayable for me. Although I am amused by just the stuff that happens. It's fun to
funny,
watch.
yeah.
Yes. My favorite nugget is in the Simon Parkin's My Perfect Console. He got Masaya Matsuura, and he told the story of they were casting Parappa, and they were done, and one of the people who was supposed to be auditioning didn't show up, and they were already packed up all their stuff, and they get a buzz up, and this guy's like, I'm sorry, I'm late. I tried to get here, but like, I was gonna borrow my friend's car. My friend's car was broken down. So I borrowed a bike and I biked here, and the bike broke. So I tried taking a bus, but there's no. But I just ended up like running the west. Please, I'll rap through the phone. Can I rap through the phone? Let me rap through the phone. So then he just starts rapping, and Masaya Matsura kind of like covers the speaker and is like to his producer, "What do you think?" And she's like, okay, so first of all, he sounds like 14. Second of all, he basically played a level of the game to get here. Like, this guy basically is Parappa, like, in real life. Like, that was the guy. They cast Parappa. And, like,
Really?
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah. Again, it's our
Wow.
obligatory My Perfect Console plug. Go listen to it.
That's funny.
All right, Corey, round 3, pick 2.
All right. I had a number of things here that I could pick, but I feel like I'm going to go for something that I feel is a no-brainer, and I'm going to say Street Fighter Alpha 2.
Nice.
I had to pick one fighting game. I had this. It had either this or X-Men versus Street Fighter. So I love X-Men versus Street Fighter. It was the first game I ever imported on the Saturn. But Street Fighter Alpha 2 is probably my favorite Street Fighter game outside of Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition. And I feel like it is this perfect encapsulation of everything that Street Fighter was up to that point. I feel like even with Street Fighter Alpha 3, it that jettisons some like a bunch of the character theme music. Like, sure, there's a lot of characters in that game, but I felt like a lot of the characters didn't have any of their own stages and stuff. This felt like the culmination of everything in Street Fighter 2 and then Street Fighter Alpha and then this. And it's a super fun game to play. It's not bloated with a whole bunch of different super moves, like, your different isms, I guess, that would come in the third one. And it doesn't add too many characters. It's just a really good roster, and I think it's the best Street Fighter game outside of Champion Edition, which is my choice because that's the first one I ever played.
That alpha generation of Street Fighter was just so good. It was just the series was cooking. Like, the art is what I always come back to, just how beautiful the pixel art was, but also the key art from all the games, just like style for days. I couldn't I was a big X-Men versus Street Fighter fan as well in the arcade specifically, but just that the Alpha series, I just wanted to be that. It was just like, it was like watching a music video and be like, man, I wish I was in this music video. It was just like the style in that game, and then matched with like impeccable fighting gameplay on top of it. Like, it wasn't just beautiful, it was like the best of the best on top of that. Like,
and it's
just
not overly complicated.
Wild.
Like,
no.
that's like a lot of fighting games would become complicated with just like so many like isms and stuff like that. And I just love how simple this is, but is complex at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was gonna say I played 3 for Dreamcast. Is one of my favorite fighting games ever, and I also could just put the isms right in the bin. Just do not need the isms in any way, shape, or form.
Like
Love
race and sex and
age. Well, yeah. Also throw
a lot of those. Yeah.
Throw those isms out as well. But yeah. All right, Aiden, I think you're up.
Okay.
Round 3, pick 3.
So round 3, pick 3. I'm on the clock. I'm gonna stray away from consoles for this one. Oh, this is tough.
Ooh, my picks are safe.
Okay. Man, I'm gonna go with, for my third pick, I'm proud to select, for Microsoft Windows and id Software, Doom 2.
Yep. Oh.
Yeah. Quake is on my list. It's right there.
I was fully expecting Quake.
Yeah.
Right
Quake
until you said Doom 2.
Yeah, I was expecting Quake 2.
I mean, I guess, you know what?
Quake 2 wasn't out yet.
Doom, I'm kind of cheating here a little bit because it was kind of a late 94 game on DOS, but then came out on everything else in 95. So maybe...
I'll let you have it because I want to.
Okay. Yeah. What's the ruling on here? What do we got, Ty?
I'm leaning yes if you'll give me leniency on one on the later end.
Okay, here. Tell you what.
Most people probably bought it in 95. And what about Europe? Maybe its European release was 95.
That's true.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it had a ton of different. Yeah, it has so many different Japanese and stuff was 95. But here's what I'll do. I'll compromise. Instead of picking Doom 2 for Windows, which was a late 94 release, I will pick Doom on the Super NES.
Oh, gosh.
Because
are you allowing
we did a
yourself
whole
the
episode.
limited run version that you got 2 months ago?
I mean, you could do Doom on the PS1.
There's Doom on the PS1, but I love the Super Nintendo one because it's just so impossible. It shouldn't exist. Mm-hmm. It's such a funny version of the game. But Doom 2 were, before I became an RPG fanatic, those were the games for me. And so I would play whatever I could get my hands on. And in I think Try, you were just saying, I would have been playing Doom 2 in 1995, and that's why it was on my list. It came out in October 94 on DOS, but I think the Windows version, was there a Windows version? No. But yeah, I just love Doom, and Doom 2 was one of those iterative sequels that just took everything about the first game and just made it that much better. But Doom on the Super NES, which will be, I guess, my official choice, was it shouldn't have run on the Super Nintendo. And I was, I did an interview with Randall Linden, who did the original Super Nintendo version, did the limited run new version, which I have a prototype of. And it's just like, I just love the idea of taking something that seems impossible and trying to make it work. And then 25 years later, going back and saying, hey, this is one of the best games of all time. This version of it is bad. How can I make it better? And Doom is just, it changed, changed games. It changed genre. And it's just ripples of its existence sort of continue to shape video games deeply, I think.
And I get to accuse you of having recency bias on a Doom port. So
Yeah.
everybody wins.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
You know,
Okay.
I mean, Doom, I think is yet again an example of a game that I played much later. I mean, I probably played technically played a little bit of it back in the day, but I was actually for like a teenage boy weirdly like judgmental of violent games because I, you know, I thought that people were just being shallow and just liking them for the violence, which I think I'm right. I think they were. That was what drew them to them. But I was also being, unfair and judging, just assuming there was no real gameplay
Yeah.
depth there. Doom's amazing. Doom, like I have never been the biggest first person shooter guy, but when I went back to, especially with like Night Dive, I mean, Night Dive does incredible work.
Yeah.
And I've actually almost look at Night Dive as like a friend giving me a recommendation for all these like if they pick a game to make a new version of, I'm like, oh, I want to try it because I've discovered like, the so-called boomer shooter is like kind of my thing. Like I think one of the most remarkable things about Doom, and part of just what makes it so fun to play, you don't look up and down. Like it's just all horizontal aiming.
It does it all for you.
It just makes it
The
feel
bullets
so,
go out of it indirectly.
Yep. It's
angle out
so
of the
much
barrel.
more about like exploration and survival, really, than just like, oh, dude, I pulled off a sick shot. Like it's about more than what first person shooters kind of became, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the exploration aspect was such a big part of why I liked Doom and Doom 2. It was, like you were going through these maze-like levels in a non-linear fashion, trying to, again, solve puzzles, find the keys, like make your way to the end in a way that I think a lot of modern shooters just don't really attempt anymore.
Very compelling level design.
Amazing. And the fact that this was made by a couple of kids, like a handful of kids in like, like some office with the ceiling falling down and stuff is just wild. Like, John Carmack, for, all his faults these days, was brilliant at what he did. And the fact that he somehow connected with John Romero and Tom Hall and all those other guys, like it just blows my mind that they could create something like that as like 20-year-olds. Crazy stuff. So I guess, my official pick is Doom on the SNES or Doom 2 on the PlayStation, whichever. We can split the difference.
All right. Okay, and then I believe, that brings up Mark. Ending round 3, starting round 4.
All right, I got my 1-2 punch here, which is very appropriate because my next two picks are, for me at least, inextricably intertwined. So first here, I'm continuing chronological. Kirby Superstar.
Oh, nice.
This was something that this might actually be the first game that I like pre-ordered. If it's not, it's very close to being the first game I ever like put money down on so I could pick it up day one. Yoshi's Island I didn't have pre-ordered, but this I did. And at the time I actually had no real interest in the N64. I think part of that was I was so late to Super Nintendo, and so, just like people are every generation, they're a lot of people are upset that the thing they have is going to be outdated when something new is coming up. So I was kind of like, I don't know about all these new 3D consoles, 16 bits is enough, but the day I went to pick up Kirby Superstar, I forget exactly what the date was, but it was, probably a couple weeks before the N64 launch. And they had the N64 set up there. And I played Super Mario 64. And as I famously or infamously said in the RGB 200 series episode on N64, it was too real to be real. I just like could not believe, like, I'd seen the screenshots, but like playing it was just like my brain did not see the flaws. It just was incredible. And so I get home and you'd think I'm going to be like then disappointed by Kirby Superstar. I'm all of a sudden like sold on N64. I have to have this. And then I pop it in. It has that like mode 7 with a pre-rendered Kirby like flying around on the pre-title sequence. I'm like, oh, well, this looks just like N64. In my head, like that was just almost as impressive.
Yes.
And I'm telling all my friends, I'm like, you see this in Kirby? Like that's what the N64 looked like in the store. Like it looked like that. Okay, maybe not,
Incredible.
but I was saying that.
There is that apocryphal story about like Miyamoto canning Star Fox 2 because he didn't want it to like steal the thunder of the Nintendo 64.
Yeah.
For me, but so like maybe you're onto something.
I mean, I don't think I understood really what was the difference between like polygons and other ways of creating depth. Like Stunt Race FX was a 3D game, yes, but so was Mario Kart as far as I was concerned. The gameplay was in the Z-axis, right?
Doom is a good example. Like it's not technically a 3D game, right? Like it's just right scaling, which is wild. And so yeah, you're right. I had no idea what separated those from like Nintendo 64 stuff, but my mind was like, whoa.
It took a while for me to understand that, like polygons, like the things you can do with them are a little different. But anyway, Kirby Superstar, I mean, I freaking loved it. I think it's one of the most fun co-op games on the Super Nintendo, hands down. The bite-sized sort of game structure is really fun. You can pick one of those and play through it in like no time at all. Great Cave Offensive is really fun to spend a little more time in and explore. And they all have like little different rules between the games. I was a huge Kirby fan. Well, still am. I mean, here's my like retro Kirby plush sitting right over here. Absolutely love Kirby. But
Cool.
this game I thought was really special in a lot of ways because I, for whatever reason, skipped Kirby's Adventure. I didn't have, like I said, I got Super Nintendo so late. So you would have thought I would have got Kirby's Adventure, but Kirby was mostly a Game Boy thing for me. Aside from some of the spin-offs on Super Nintendo. And so it was like really exciting to get to play like a full color Kirby platformer. So I was pretty hyped. And it's always been disappointing to me that for so long after this, Kirby kind of went back, especially on like Game Boy Advance and stuff. And even to some extent, Kirby 64, Kirby's Dream Land 3, went back to much more simplistic, stiffer control input. You didn't have like all these varied moves that you could do, which, Sakurai would kind of flesh out into what became Smash Brothers. This game's the template for Smash Brothers, in my opinion. Just how much ability you have, whether you're doing double tap, up, down, all these different moves with tons of different powers. And so when Kirby's Return to Dreamland came out, they finally took a second look at how this game's controls worked. And, Kirby platformers have been in a golden age ever since, thankfully. But this game stood alone as a very unique playing Kirby game for a very long time. So it's still very
Cool.
special to me.
All right, 3 rounds in the books, 2 more to go. Sit tight. We are going to wrap it up very soon. Right here on FunFactor.
Round 4. Fight.
All right, we are back. Round 4. We're starting back off. Mark, and I've said I just recompiled the picks so far. And I think, boy, they really reflect the people. So Try, what have you got? Round 4, pick one.
Well,
What's next?
as I said, I've got a 1-2 punch here. And obviously that Kirby Superstar story is just as much about Mario 64, right? Super Mario 64.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
I'm kind of shocked that I was able to go
Yep.
all the way to round 4 and no one else choose it. I mean, I know Corey hates it. I don't know about
I don't
you guys.
hate it, but it's just I don't like it that much.
I mean, this game was just so mind-blowing to me, and I still think to this day is maybe the best playing, just in terms of just the feel of moving the character in the world is just so purely joyful. And I feel like developers learned so much from Mario 64, but they also, in some ways, I think maybe took some of the wrong lessons, or maybe some of the wrong criticisms, from my point of view, at least, where, Mario is very loose and agile. I mean, he doesn't look it, but he's an acrobat, right? Like, he is fundamentally an
Yeah.
acrobat, and you can do crazy acrobatic moves in that game. You look at, a later game that would also be considered very acrobatic, something like Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, which is a fantastic game, but everything is much more constrained, much more canned. There's only really one way, for the most part, that you can get through and areas platforming challenges. Whereas Mario 64, they kind of don't care if you break the game a bit. You can get up to some places that you really shouldn't. You can get some stars in ways that you really shouldn't. And that just made the game endlessly replayable for me and my friends. And we would like discover, like, oh wow, I was able to, jump on this hill that you kind of shouldn't be able to get to and cut across from here. And we would like come up with these lists of challenges for each other. Like, can you get this without doing this?
Right.
And
right.
so, man, we could just play it again and again and again, just because of the sheer versatility of the move set, from just how unconstrained it was. And why I say I think developers maybe took the wrong criticisms from it is I feel like platformer and just game mechanic design in general became a lot more tightened up, almost to the point of losing a bit of fun. I never found something like Banjo-Kazooie was a great game to play through one time, but the mechanics are just not as flexible as Mario 64. So I felt like I was never really able to do anything interesting when I tried to replay Banjo-Kazooie. It's just like, okay, get the same items again. Mario 64, I can kind of approach problems in all sorts of different ways. It's a game that, I replay endlessly. I don't know speedrunner strats, but just playing the game like I always play, I can beat it in like 2.5 hours, no real strategy to it. I just like running through it and getting 70 stars and beating the game. In fact, that was a tradition of mine when I was in college, since, I was in college in like the PS2, GameCube, Xbox era. And I didn't bring my old consoles with me. So every time I was at home at my parents' house for Christmas break, summer break, I would, it was a tradition the night before I went back to school, I did a quick playthrough of Mario 64. So, I mean, I
That's
think
cool.
this is just one of the absolute most sublime, joyfully playing games ever made. And people like Corey who get frustrated by its controls, and maybe you guys, I don't know. I do not understand. It's perfect. It's perfect, and I cannot get my mind into a frame where it is not perfect.
As somebody who like quite openly did not like 3D graphics in this era, Mario 64 I think is pretty. I think it's pretty close to a perfect game. I think in hindsight, the camera's goofy and makes it less fun to play than it could be, but just the tight responsiveness of the controls, the fact that like Nintendo just like out of nowhere made it, like I don't even know, like like this genre, like 3D platformers just like didn't exist like this, and so many other games tried and just couldn't figure it out, just tells me how much like the way they moved into just making a game that feels really good to play And then what can we now do with that? What can we do with these controls that just feels awesome? You know, I think it was like Celeste, like Maddie Makes Games, talking about how like just getting the game feel down, starting there and then making sure that your game feels good to play and then figuring out how to make a good game around it. And that's what Mario 64 feels like to me. Like you can just run around that opening field outside of Princess Peach's castle and it feels amazing. Like my daughter, she's 7 and she just loves running around outside Peach's castle, like just exploring, trying out the moves, seeing what she can do. And like you said, like there are no boundaries in the game. Like you can, if you can do it, you can do it. And that makes speed running so fascinating to watch. Like it's one of the most fun games to watch speed runs of, I think, for all of those reasons.
Absolutely. And it solved so many problems that most other developers didn't even know they'd have to solve yet. Right. And like you said, it's like, okay, well, they would try and do the same thing and then run into all these problems Nintendo already had to solve. And then wait, hold on, how did they do that and still not get it right? Like they're so far ahead of the time. I think it holds up well as a game. Obviously, there's genre conventions and other things that, you know, kind of surpass it in certain ways, but it was just so far ahead of its time. And there's nothing, I was about to say on the page, there's no page. There's nothing on the screen that you look at and go, this is bad. It's all good, right? It all feels good to play. And unfortunately, my indelible sense memory is there was a girl I liked who dated a guy I didn't like, but sat next to in a class. And she spent like 3 weeks calling me every night to complain about him. And I would just try to beat my time on the slide run in Super Mario, and I would just be grinding my analog stick into dust and gritting my teeth, being like, I just have to have something to do while I like put up with this. And my mom would be like, are you okay? You've been in your room for like 6 hours. And I'm like, I'm just trying to shave another 100th off this time. Okay. And again, by the way, like, try, come on, like, if this had been 1-1, if I had taken Super Mario 64 1-1, you know, nobody would have batted an eye, right? Like people in the audience, I'm sure people have been screaming, where is Super Mario 64? How did Super Mario 64 fall this far? So absolutely.
Well, I mean, you know,
incredible
I was gambling because this is such a pivotal era for me that I thought it would be fun to at least try to hold myself to go in chronological, regardless of what you all may do. So it was a gamble, but I got my Mario 64 anyway.
I'm going to admit something embarrassing right now, but when I was compiling my list, I forgot about the Nintendo 64.
Yeah, put it on.
Oh my gosh.
Nintendo 64 is like what 96 is all about to me, but I'm you know,
I watched your analog 3D video.
Yes, I'm a massive N64 fan.
Super Mario 64 was 7 on my board, and I hadn't been saying it just on the off chance it fell to the bottom of round 4, which I didn't think was going to happen. But all right, Aiden, speaking of, we've got to get this going.
Pick
round
4.
Pick 2.
And now that I remember about Nintendo 64, I am tempted to pick Wave Race, but instead I'm going to go with my original pick, which is Diablo. On the PC.
That's a good one.
Which another one of those games that just sort of like took an existing like genre and reinvented it in a way that just made me fall in love with it all over again. Taking these sort of dungeon crawling RPG and making, you know, like everything in Diablo existed already, right? Like looting and, you know, like generative levels that, what is it called when you make up levels on the fly? I can't remember, but, all of that existed, right? Like what's that?
Did you say like procedural
generation? Yeah. For levels and stuff, you know, like it all existed, but the way that Blizzard just came and put it into this perfect package, just clicked and worked for me. And, you know, I played Diablo 2, Diablo 3, Diablo 4, but none of them really hit the same way as just like, I love the idea of just delving deeper and deeper and deeper underground into this dungeon that gets like crazier and crazier and crazier. And I've just never had as much fun clicking my mouse. You know, all you're doing is you're just clicking your mouse. And like my job now as an adult, I just click my mouse. And I think it all starts with Diablo.
It's a good game. It's a good game.
Yeah,
It's a game that I hadn't played until fairly recently. You know, I watched a friend play through 2 when it was new, and I played through 3 on the PS4, but it really clicked with me with playing through Diablo 2 Resurrected last year. I put 50 hours into it, and then I went back and revisited the first one and thinking like, wow, this is really good. And even the PS1 port is very good as well.
Yes. Yeah, it's very expensive now, but I had a friend and that was his only way to play Diablo was the PS1 port. So we would play it at the time, and the fact that they could make something that was so feels like such a definitive PC game, like computer game, work on consoles was really impressive at the time.
Yes.
But yeah, just exploring Tristram and shooting arrows, clicking on stuff, just never gets old. So good.
And in becoming fresh meat.
Yeah. Yes. Well, and the sound design and the way that added to the atmosphere in the game you got to kind of give credit for it at that time.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You just sunk into that dungeon under Tristram and hopefully left.
Good pick.
Definitely. All right, Coury, you're up.
I'm up. All right. So what I'm going to pick is will allow me to kind of talk about why I didn't like Mario 64.
Great.
So my pick is going to be Nights into Dreams.
Nice.
Ooh, okay. Good.
So, being the age I was, and I was a senior in high school in 96, and the first time I used the N64 controller, I could just not wrap my head around how to use it, but also I did not have the, self-control to use analog sticks, to use an analog stick. So I'm just used to D-pads, just jamming on it as hard as I could in any direction. And it took a long time for me to really be able to have that kind of self-control, with game controls. So it was hard for me to wrap my head around using that kind of control in a fully 3D environment. But then I played Nights, and this was a fully 3D game, but it plays in 2D, right? Which is so cool. And I thought, I can really, really get into this kind of style because it makes sense to me. I understand that the game came with an analog controller, but I didn't play it with the analog controller for years.
I was wondering, I was sitting there going wait a minute, hold on. Wasn't there a Knights controller that had an so there you go.
Right, exactly. But I never had one until I bought some new old stock of the one that with Knights and that in the early 2000s. But this game really cemented my love for the 2D 2.5D kind of game, because I was deciding between this and Klonoa Door to Phantomile as what I wanted to pick here, and I just felt like Nights was the first game that really made me understand what 2.5D was and that it made sense to me, and without any of the the drawbacks that I was experiencing with fully 3D games. And I think that this is a game that's maybe misunderstood. That it's a
weird game, but
it's a weird game, and it's a racing game.
Yeah,
even though
you have
it
to
doesn't
think of it
seem
in
like
those
it
terms. I think. Well, once I understood how to play it, I actually really got into it. I really enjoyed it, but it's not intuitive. You have to kind of know what it expects from you.
Yeah.
It is funny to hear you say that it was the 3D game that sort of made sense to you, Coury, because it still doesn't make sense to me. I still try to play it, and I'm like, I don't know what's happening.
It makes sense.
It looks cool. It's beautiful, but
how 2.5D works.
Yeah.
It's 3D. The environments are 3D, but you're still on a 2D track.
Yeah. I think because you're flying, you're in open space. I want to be able to move, but that is going back to experiencing Super Mario 64 first. And of course, back in the day, Nights was so hyped as the Super Mario 64 killer, head to head. And so, you know,
not even they're not comparable. In
no,
any
they're
sense.
like they're so different, and that did such a disservice to Knights, right? Because
Yes.
I went in being like, oh, this is supposed to be Sega's Super Mario 64. Oh, this is not like Super Mario 64 at all. I don't like it. You know, and that I think a lot of people probably had that experience. And you know, I try to go back to it now. I still don't really understand what's going on in Knights, but it is beautiful.
If you think of it in terms of a racing game,
Yeah,
like it's
I've never
not
thought
a
of it
racing
that way.
game, but if you think of it as a racing game,
Yeah.
then it that is a much easier way to start to wrap your head around it.
Yeah. I'm curious. I'm going to go back and play it now this weekend, thinking of it like that way.
Yeah.
Instead of thinking of it as like an action platformer. Which
Right.
is like,
You want to go around and get it till all of the till you destroy the pods, and then you want to collect as many of the gold ones as you can before, like, and basically cross the finish line before, like, just before the time runs out.
Yeah, you have to
Okay.
destroy all the pods.
Interesting.
Like that's the main goal.
And then you can keep on going around and just never
Right.
ending this.
Because I
stage,
think
essentially.
if I'm remembering correctly, you destroy the pod, and then when you cross the starting point, you go down a different path. Is that how it?
No, it's not. It's not always a different path. You're
Or
just collecting. You want to collect as many of the gold jewels as you can,
Yeah.
without actually going through the finish line until
Yeah.
you know
And
you've.
you have to just think of it as it's an arcade action game. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
Saturn tended to be. You know, thinking of it as a Mario 64 competitor is not going to make anyone happy because that's just not that that's
It's not
if you're
even
thinking about it in
remotely
those terms,
comparable.
you're not going to understand it.
yeah. And that, like,
Yeah.
you know, when 95, I guess it came out. Is that right?
96.
96.
Well, it's 96 here.
So,
at
you know,
least.
I would have been 12, and it's like I was in Toys R Us and there was a Saturn and Knights was there, and I was like, oh, Knights. And then I was, you know, when it's not what you're kind of told it was supposed to be by the magazines. And that's kind of the core of the show, right? Like the way that it was positioned in magazines at the time as this like competitor to Mario 64. Like I get that they were trying to like sell more Saturns. But I think it did a disservice to the game overall because it's such its own thing.
Well, I think a big part of that is being positioned as a competitor to Mario 64 is that this was from Yuji Naka and what's his like
Sonic
um,
Team. Like,
yeah, like just
yeah.
you know has the same character designer as Sonic, so it's in lieu of a Sonic game on the Saturn, this is what we were getting.
Yeah.
So
All right. Well, speaking of destroying the pod, no, just, sorry, I've been hanging on to that segue for like 5 minutes. Anyway, no, I've got a back-to-back here. I've got like 4 I absolutely want to take with these last 2 picks. I'm looking at genre, I'm looking at console, looking at the field, I'm looking at what people have picked. I'm trying to do it here. So I'm going to take round 4, pick 4. Takara's Battle Arena Toshinden. For PlayStation 1. I know it's a bit of a curveball. I wanted to get a fighting game in here. And Toshinden, for me, wins out over its contemporaries in a couple of different ways. Number 1, I think the graphics are excellent. Number 2, the sound is incredible. It's another one of those Red Book game, Red Book winners for me, where you can put the CD in the player, play through the tracks. It's great. And for me, I think, and it was actually the Knights conversation that sold me on it, because it had the 2.5D setup like Tekken, but with the sidestep, right?
Yeah.
And like everything was on not a grid, but a radius, where like you're 2D, and then you sidestep, and they're attacking in this same plane, but you're on this different plane. But then if they sidestep the same direction, you're on the same plane. And it was on this like, clock. I don't know how many steps it was. Was it 12 steps? Like, I don't know, right? But it was like everybody had these steps, and it worked. So, if you both stepped the same direction, if you both stepped opposite ways, like it kept that fluidity, and it made sense, in and out of each other. Like it really clicked together for me. The gameplay really worked. I've never been an adept Twitch gamer. Like I've never been really, really skilled. But the combination of the movement and the combos, like the commands, I should say, not the combos, but like the commands, it really clicked for me. And the characters were not like iconic, quote unquote, Sophia maybe with the whip and the laugh,
Mhm.
Ellis, I was always like, give me the quickest one, right? Because I need to be able to move. I can't pull off the super moves, so I need to be able to dance around, right? And then there was also gigantic, Gaia. They were huge, huge, huge characters, right? And then, yeah. So like for me, it was just a combination of everything I love in a fighting game, and the presentation was great. And like so many sequels of this era, it's something that I talk about a lot. Uh, Toshinden 2 was better in a lot of conventional ways, and also lost a lot of what I thought made the first one different and special than other fighting games, right? So I'm taking Toshinden here.
It was also one of the first like good 3D fighters. And like
Yeah.
it was mostly a 2D fighter with 3D like polygonal graphics, but having that like plane that you were fighting on to give that effect of like that 3D environment was cool at the time.
Yeah. It was their answer to Virtua Fighter.
Yeah.
And the first Virtua Fighter it's pretty slow and very floaty, and I feel like
That's true.
that's not the case for Battle Arena.
Yeah, and also, as again, I keep saying, I cannot denigrate the graphics of Virtua Fighter hard enough. Like, I'm like, look at this and look at that. This does not, you look at Virtua Fighter and I'm like, ooh, the future. Like no, dude. Like even in the arcade, Virtua Fighter 1.
But to be fair, the Virtua Fighter 4 in the arcade runs at 480i too. So
Yeah.
it's
Right. I did, like, but VF1, and especially at home, I'm just like, no way. Toshinden was way better. IMO. All right. That's round 4 in the books. We have some incredible teams shaping up here. We're going to finish it out with round 5 right here on FunFactor.
Round 5. Fight.
We're back on FunFactor, 5th and final round of our incredible Generation Gap era draft, 1995 through 1997. I am loving my picks so far. I am stressing because I have several games I can't believe I can still pick from here. I am genuinely considering taking my second PS1 racing game published by Psygnosis. But in lieu of that, oh man, I am gonna go, and if you'll, okay, released in Japan December 97. Do I get that or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's 97. I said region doesn't matter.
Okay. All right. Then I am taking Gran Turismo.
Whoa.
ooh.
Okay.
I have always been a car guy. I had pictures of Ferrari Testarossa, Lamborghini Countach, Nissan 300ZX. Actually, there's 2 Countaches right over my bed. I had all kinds of toy cars and everything, and I still have a 1991 Honda Civic Si in my garage with the engine that I was going to put into it next to it on a stand right before we had a baby, and that baby is old enough to buy alcohol in the United States legally. So that's it. However, one of my good friends at the time who was in the tuning scene, Lucas Shar, in 2024 took the Sunday Cup podium at Laguna Seca with his Toyota Yaris. And it's spelled Sunday SAE Cup instead of SAY Cup, just in case Sony and Polyphony decide to get litigious. But so like this is actually like a direct real racing to video game racing, and the fact that you start with an Econo box and a hope and a prayer, and you just grind RPG style trying to win $20, $100, $200. And just slowly build your way up your circuit till you have a garage full of Mercedes, and special race cars, and obviously later iterations on the series built on this idea more and more and more. But this is just an absolutely unbelievable passion project and labor of love and dedication to the real thing that is obviously still set the tone for games for forever since then. And I will take Gran Turismo, and I'm happy to have it.
Chasing realism on the PlayStation was so ambitious.
Yeah.
That's a word for it.
And like just
Yeah.
when I think back to the original Gran Turismo, like what a wild idea to try to pull off, and how well they executed on that. Like it's a cool looking game.
Yeah. I mean, it's impressive. It's iconic. I really can't play sim racers. More of a Ridge Racer guy.
Sure.
But
Sure.
but I mean, I can't deny that it was a big deal at the time, and it looks great. I enjoyed watching, my cousin play it. I didn't enjoy playing it myself, but it's a beautiful game.
Totally fair.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, go ahead,
good.
Corey. Yeah.
No, it's good. It's good. I've never been a big sim fan, but I somehow own every single Gran Turismo game. But that's okay, right? I mean, it's something that I want to explore more and understand more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like something that would take me like 2 years of my life if I wanted to
Yeah.
like, I'd have to hyper focus on it for like 2 years and then get really
Yeah.
good at sim games. And
Well, isn't
sim
that why they
races.
made the whole my first Gran Turismo?
Yeah.
It's like a
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the modern ones that I own, and I messed around with that a bit because I got an HDR TV and I was like, okay, like let's check this out.
My memory is actually of 4 Gran Turismo 4 because my son spent forever and ever trying to save up for the blitz tuned Nissan Skyline R34 and like it took him like 2 months, and then he accidentally sold it somehow. And I came home from work and he had come home from school and had been in tears for like 2 hours.
Oh gosh.
And
my
so I
gosh.
was like, well, it's time to do the dad thing. And I grinded
Oh no.
for like, I think I even called into work. I grinded for like 20 hours in 3 days, and I got him his car back. But it was like 800,000 credits. It was like,
But that's awesome though. I mean, that's something you will never forget doing.
no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Okay. Yeah, Corey, your pick.
All right. There's a whole bunch of stuff left on my list, but I feel like I'm going to go for the most out of left field choice
Sure.
on my list. And I feel like maybe this is something that most of you guys might not even be on your list. All right, I'm going to go for the Neo Geo game Shock Troopers,
Ooh.
a 1997 video game.
It's so hard to remember that those iconic 2D Neo Geo games
We're still coming out,
were
right?
yeah. I mean, Metal Slug is a '96 game if I'm not mistaken. Like in your head you think they're much older, but they really aren't.
Yeah. So this is an overhead run and gun game that I think that might just be the best in the genre.
Yeah.
It is you each select from multiple characters, and you choose your route of like a lineup of levels, and you can choose 2 characters that split a life bar, or you can have 1 character that like has a full life bar for themselves, and it kind of changes up the way the game is played that way. I think you can even have 3 people on your team. It's
I
it's
can't
almost like
remember
King of Fighters in
exactly.
a way, where you can choose like their ratio or whatever, and it's just a really good run and gun game that it combines. You can move in 360 degrees or fire in 8 directions, I guess. But then you can also hold down the shot button to strafe, which really does a lot for the gameplay. It's just a game that I didn't play until much, much later. And I think that we streamed it and we were just kind of blown away how good it was.
Yeah.
And it's just, if you like overhead run and gun, it's hard to think of anything better than Shock
I
Troopers.
mean, I've only got 6 Neo Geo MVS cartridges, and Shock Troopers was a very high priority. So
Yeah, it's the first one I ever
Nice.
got. It was the one that I wanted to get. So
it was a great game.
Those
Outstanding.
Neo Geo games are just beautiful too. Like
Yes.
they're just so distinct when you see them
Mhm.
because nothing else was pushing graphics like that, like 2D graphics at that time. Like you say, like Metal Slug being
Nothing
comparable
would
to like
for like 20
early
years.
gen PS2, like
Yeah.
Beyond the Beyond or whatever.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool to look back on those. I didn't ever really play much Neo Geo because I don't even know how. They were so expensive. I'd see them in the back of magazines and I'd be like, why is that game $400? But
Yeah.
but yeah.
Broke my
I put
heart.
a link in the chat there
Yeah.
in case anybody is not familiar with this game.
And,
All right.
and,
Check
and
it out.
don't forget about Shock Troopers 2. Go into it with a open mind. Yes, it has fewer characters. Yes, it uses a lot of pre-rendered graphics, but it still plays great. It's still a very fun, very fun game.
Cool. All right, Aiden, last pick. What do you got?
Oh my gosh, there are
Last
so
pick for
many.
you. Last pick for you. Try, you still got one
I
more.
know.
Just want to be clear.
Try's got one more. So like, man, there's the shooters, Quake, Duke Nukem 3D. I could pick. There's RPGs left on the board. Lufia 2, Trials of Mana. There's even like
Wild
Saturn
Arms.
RPGs like Lunar, Silver Star Story Complete, and Grandia, which were 97 in Japan. I really want to pick Warcraft 2, Tides of Darkness,
Mhm.
but I think I'm contractually obligated because I'm writing a book about it. And my boss,
Yep.
my editor at
I've been
Boss Fight
waiting.
Books, would be upset if I didn't pick Suikoden as my final pick.
Oh.
So I'm writing a book about it. So I've been, deep into the Suikoden lore for the past couple of years, and it's a game that just really changed my idea of how video game stories could kind of be told, in the way that it kind of merged like big high level politicking with really intimate, close personal stories that I had never seen before. And it was one of those games that I watched my friend play through a bunch of, and then finally got a PlayStation and got to play it a little later. And then Suikoden 2 was the one that I really fell in love with. But Suikoden as a series and as a game has just been so important to me ever since that PlayStation era. So that's my final pick, Suikoden 1.
That's a good
I
choice.
really want to play through it again because I've
Yeah.
only played
Another
through it
short,
once, and
like,
it's short. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
another really short, like 108 characters, and it's 10 hours long.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like you're recruiting a character every 3 minutes. And
Yep.
yeah, no, and the way that it mixed like, regular RPG battles, but like with 6 characters, had the combo attacks.
Oh, the
but
way
then
they
the
all
big
like
war
run in
battles.
and animate is
Yeah.
just like poetry in motion.
Incredible. And the story behind Suikoden is also so inspiring to me, because you have Yoshitaka Murayama, who was new to the industry. He was with Junko Kawano, who was also fairly new to the industry, and they got put on this project. And there's a funny story about how it came together, because he was like, he wanted to make a game about Captain Tsubasa, the like soccer anime, because he loved like strong cast of secondary characters, but his boss didn't like manga. And so he went into his boss's office to pitch an idea for a game, and he said he wanted to make one with like lots of characters. So instead of saying Captain Tsubasa, he went and said, oh, I like, like the Water Margin, the book, The Water Margin, Suikoden. It's about these outlaws. Kind of want to make an RPG like that. And then his boss was like, okay, you're making an RPG about the Water Margin. And he was like, no, I don't want to make a water Margin, a Suikoden game. I want to make one, like that. And his boss was like, no, that's what you're making now.
But he
So he
kind of
kinda
did
fell
make one
backwards
like
into-
that, because there's so much like I would say there's kind of a lot of like Western fantasy influence in it as well.
Yes, and then that's what's interesting, is he kind of took this idea of like taking these Chinese classic novels, but then marrying it with a lot of like Western tropes, which I think is just a really interesting mix in the mid 90s. And just watching that cultural crossover between sort of these, you had D&D, which inspired Wizardry and Ultima, which inspired Sakaguchi and Hori to make Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest, which then, like it just like kept going back and forth in this sort of cyclical like process of like inspiration. And I think Suikoden encapsulates a lot of that for those reasons.
Awesome.
Good choice.
All right, Try. Last one.
final pick of the
Let's
show. So I mean, of course, there's lots of things I could pick. My heart says Wave Race 64. I thought you were going to go for it, Aiden.
I really want to, but I think my editor would be mad.
Well, I mean, Wave Race 64 is like, it's what an incredible little game. But in the interest of having one non-Nintendo game on my list, because I didn't have a PlayStation at this time. Yes, I've gone back and played a lot of the games from the time. and from other platforms. But you know, this was so early in my like journey of like really being plugged into gaming that like I think so much about what I played at the time. You know, like, you know, you were throwing shade at Tomb Raider earlier, Ty. You know, I played through that game for the first time last year. Loved it. Loved it. I'm not picking it, but I loved it.
Cool.
Combat controls are terrible though. You are right.
Yes.
But
There's a lot
once
to
you
love
learn the
about it.
platforming controls, I love how it took such a, you know, I love looking at, you know, Tomb Raider, Crash Bandicoot, all games releasing during this, you know, cross-generational era. That's the theme of this episode. You know, I loved how they were all taking different approaches to solving the problem of what is a 3D platformer, what can it be? And just because Super Mario 64 is perfect, doesn't mean that these other games aren't still very interesting, and pursuing some interesting ideas of their own. But I'm going to go with Riven, the sequel to Myst.
Interesting.
Just to go,
Okay.
go for something a little left field. This was one of the relatively few PC games, Myst and Riven were one of the relatively few PC games I was playing at the time, mostly because my computer could basically not play games. I always like to tell how bad my computer was by saying that I bought Final Fantasy VII for PC before I had a PlayStation, and the FMVs ran upside down. And no one else has ever said like, oh yeah, that happened to me too. No, that was just me. So anyway, but Riven, I was definitely looking forward to this, because I liked Myst a lot. I first played it on my uncle's computer and then got my own copy. But this game, man, the atmosphere, the visuals, I mean, the pre-rendered backgrounds, my gosh, they hold up. They hold up. They look so much better. Like, there's almost, you know, this was like kind of an early in that era of heavy use of pre-rendered backgrounds. And I don't know if anything is better than this outside of like Resident Evil Remake.
Yeah.
Like, this was, I mean, it just, wow.
Yeah.
Really, really stunned me. And it's just got this unique vibe, this unique atmosphere, this unusual world, that there's not really much of anything else out there quite like it. And I think the live action performances are extremely compelling. You know, when you're you know, kind of caged by Gin at the end, and he's giving you his big villain monologue, like it's like pretty scary. Like you kind of feel like this is a man who knows what he's going to do to you at the end of this long speech. Yes, it's quite obtuse, quite difficult to figure out, but I think it's very special. And the remake from Cyan, from the original developers, of course they're a lot smaller now than they were at the time.
Little
is
bitty
also
developers.
very beautiful.
I think this is a great choice. I haven't actually played Riven, but when I was making my list, Myst had a few releases in like 95 and 96. And so it was one that, you know, I was contemplating as well. But you come back to like pre-rendered backgrounds. And to me, that is like, personally, that is the, even more so than 3D, it's the pre-rendered backgrounds that like are emblematic and identify that era.
Oh yeah, because it's that crossover period. Like it's like it's something that could be done on lower powered hardware and higher powered.
How do you take like the higher powered hardware that can create these like beautiful backgrounds, but like get it onto lower powered consoles? And you know, Myst and Riven, like I've played a little bit of Riven, and so I, you know, like I can speak to that as well. And it is beautiful, and it creates these worlds just like the Final Fantasy games, just like Resident Evil, where they feel like every single inch is intentional. There's no repeated tile sets. There's no, you know, like cut and paste like rooms from, in a dungeon or whatever, every single inch feels like, an artist's brush has touched it somewhere. And I think that, Riven is such a great example of that at its finest.
Yeah, and you can really see where all the missed money went into. I mean,
Yeah.
they built this huge complex and bought so many computers to render all this stuff out, and they made pretty much their dream game with the money from Myst.
Yeah.
So incredible achievement, I think, and it still looks so good.
All right, real quick, I'm gonna. Oh, actually, Coury, go ahead, real quick.
It's okay. I just think it's so interesting that that Cyan did that, because they essentially like legitimized the CD-ROM format for games.
Yeah.
I mean, there was Seventh Guest was before that, but it was such a crossover hit that's why people bought CD-ROMs for their computers to play it, and it's amazing that. That it's a 5 CD game.
Yeah.
It was
and when
literally millions of people's first video game that they cared about. Like genuinely.
Yeah. And when I got Riven from Best Buy, I forget what it was. One of the discs had a little bit of the game, just like a smaller island on it. Because the way it plays is you kind of hop between discs, hop back and forth. Because like this disc is this island, or these cluster of islands, and this disc is this other island. And you kind of like ride a tram between the islands that then you might be going back to a previous disc. But one of them had like a smaller part of the game on it and a demo for another game. And thank goodness I got far enough into the game during the return window, because I had two. I was missing like disc 3 and had 2 of disc 4 or something like that.
Yeah,
it was one way or the other. I forget which it was. So yeah, I luckily found that out within 30 days and was able to get a replacement copy at Best Buy.
Unbelievable. All right, I want to borrow a concept from football: undrafted free agency. This is when the draft is over. Everybody who didn't get drafted can be signed by whatever team wants to sign them. So it's way more chaotic, way more hectic. Teams are bidding against each other. So I just want to hear, what was the rest of your board that you've got, unless you put like 50 on for a 20-pick draft. So like top 5, 6, 7 that nobody else picked. Just rattle off the names. I would just love to hear. And let's go in backwards order. So Try, Aiden, Coury, and then me. Try, what other games did you have on your list that haven't been taken yet?
I mean, Wave Race 64 is definitely the big one.
Yeah.
But I feel like I could have given a nod, bit of recency bias, but I could have given a nod to Tomb Raider.
Sure.
I think it actually approaches 3D platforming in a unique way, and the fact that games didn't really follow it, still makes it unique.
For sure.
So those are kind of top of mind for me. I can see also maybe going for Blast Core, because it's such a unique, unusual game that like nothing really has copied ever that I can think of. Like, not in the way that it does it. It's like just kind of this like arcadish game that just defies genre definition.
Blow stuff up. Just blast stuff.
I cracked up because Lord Drewby has been in our chat begging one of us to take Blasto literally the entire session, and you said
not Blasto,
Blast and I was like, oh my gosh,
Blast Core. I could maybe see. I was actually surprised Coury didn't go for Wild Arms. I could go for Wild Arms.
Oh yeah, I have that on mine.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Let's hear Coury. Coury, what do you got?
Let's see here. For 95, I had Terranigma on the third game in the Gaia trilogy. Excellent game that we never got here, but then I played it on a repro cart years later and just love it.
60 hertz,
the thing
though?
is,
or 50
what's
hertz? Did you get a 60 hertz?
No, it was hacked to be 50 hertz. And it has one of my favorite
60 hertz. You mean
60 hertz? Yes. 60 hertz. Sorry. It has one of my favorite quotes in like games from that time, and I still come back to it a lot, and it sticks with me. It's I think true happiness is being able to loaf without consequence. I think about that a lot. That's a great one. I had both Panzer Dragoon and Panzer Dragoon 2 on there, and let's see. I had Lunar 2 Eternal Blue on the Sega CD because that was the
Cool.
September 95 release.
Yep.
And Guardian Heroes.
Yeah.
Sorry,
yeah.
I know that I'm just kind of like rattling them off.
No, this is
And
what I wanted.
that
I was like,
good.
let's just list the names because we should have been. Oof, we're asking a lot of the folks out
Einhander
there.
and Mega Man Legends.
Ooh,
Nice.
Mega Man Legends. Wow, was that 97? Wow.
That was 97.
Wow.
Einhander's
And the only
a
PC
deep
game I
pull.
had on there was Total Annihilation, which is an RTS game.
Cool. Cool. Aiden.
Yeah, I mean, I would be happy to walk away with this if this was my list, period, for this episode. Warcraft 2, Duke Nukem 3D, Red Alert, Command and Conquer Red Alert would have been a good one.
yeah.
I had Wild Arms and Terranigma on my list as well. But yeah, I mean, Mario's Picross on the Game Boy. It's fabulous.
Really?
Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
there's I could make so many of these lists, walk away happy with any of them.
Yeah. I had Final Fantasy Tactics,
Mm-hmm.
Jumping Flash 2.
Wait,
Oh,
Final
okay.
Fantasy
I had the first
Tactics
one on mine.
was
too.
in this. How did I miss that?
I think so. Right?
Oof.
I was going by
Yeah, it
it's
was- it
97 in
was-
June 97 Japan.
Okay, yeah.
So
it
I was going a little out of
September.
bounds there,
Jumping
maybe.
Flash is good.
Jumping Flash,
Jumping
yeah.
Flash.
Yet
yeah.
another early experiment in 3D gaming that
I had
Exactly.
the first one on my list. I mean, that's
Cool. I picked 2 because it was a little more polished, and then also it has all of 1 on it. If you
Yeah.
want to play it. So Star Fox 64, Madden 96, and Formula 1, which was the other Psygnosis racing game. Pilot Wings 64.
Why had that one not even crossed my mind? Oh,
I don't know.
Good
I don't know.
Love
And then
Pilot Wing. Even Corey liked Pilot Wing 64 when he played it last year.
it was good,
Yeah.
dude. It was real good.
It's very good. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Awesome stuff. That's it. We'll jump to break. We'll come back. We'll review our final 5 lists. Our teams these are stacked. These are great teams. I love them. Stay right here on Fun Factor for the thrilling conclusion, wrap up and review when we come back.
You win.
All right, we're back here on Fun Factor. 3 years, 25 games, a whole season of Fun Factor. Here are our teams. I got Chrono Trigger, Wipeout, Parappa the Rapper, Battle Arena Toshinden, and Gran Turismo. Corey, Castlevania Symphony of the Night, Resident Evil, Street Fighter Alpha 2, Nights into Dreams, and Shock Troopers from Neo Geo. And that is a great group. Aiden, Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island, Final Fantasy 7, Doom/Doom 2 for various consoles and or PC, Diablo and Suikoden, Try Donkey Kong Country 2, Super Mario RPG, Kirby Superstar, Super Mario 64, and Riven. How are we feeling?
I feel pretty content. I could go to a desert island with any
Yeah.
of these.
Yeah.
I'd kill a year on a desert island with these, no problem. Any of these lists, frankly.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are all strong. These are all strong.
Yeah,
I
wish
think,
I wish I could steal Super Mario 64 or Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island or Final
Yeah.
Fantasy 7 from Aiden's list. But I don't know what I would trade off of my list for
I mean,
those.
I'm open to offers.
trading draft picks, the long tradition. Yeah, no, I think these are some great groups here. I would probably whose would you take if not yours, then whose is your favorite?
Ooh. I do think my list is my favorite, but I would go with Aiden's
sure.
next, and then Corey's, and then Ty. I'm sorry, we're just not very aligned on anything except for Chrono Trigger.
I get it. I get it.
I want
for
to
sure.
like Wipeout, but it's never clicked with me. I love the
Makes
aesthetic
sense.
of it, but
Yeah. XL is, like I said, there's a lot fewer like weird hangups on like corners. The physics is better. There's way less pop in. Wipeout XL is like, it's just a way more technically polished game. So I absolutely recommend checking that out if you haven't. Yeah, I'm almost in the other order. Coury, I think, is actually the one that I would probably take next. Aiden, I love yours. We align on so many things. And then Try, like, obviously you've got a groove, and I love that groove. So nothing wrong with yours. It's probably in that order for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably choose Aiden's next. And I think Try and Tie, you guys were like could go swap places pretty easily, but I think I'm gonna take Ty's third and Try's last. I mean, Try's is really, really good. It's just too much Mario for me. And as someone who like Try is very, very invested in the like characters and lore, I think, of the Mario universe.
For sure.
And it just doesn't really do a whole lot for me. Like, I feel like Riven is the most interesting choice on there.
yeah.
I think
Well,
I feel like Riven might be the most interesting choice
In
on
the
any
draft.
list.
Well,
I agree.
and that is something that I feel like Cyan's games are kind of forgotten by gamers,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
they drew so many people into games, I think, but then those people remained fans of Myst and Cyan's games and didn't really get into broader gaming, and then the accomplishments of Myst and Riven were kind of forgotten, I think, by broader gaming, but they've always been very special to me, I think. But yeah, I admit it's very Nintendo heavy, but that's where I was at the time.
Mhm.
And
Sure.
so when I
Yeah.
think of these years, I think about what I actually got in those years, for all the greatness there is, retrospectively, that I've now gone back and experienced across, this era of gaming. And like I say, I think experimentation is what keeps me in the experimentation of the developers is what a big part of what keeps me engaged with retro games, and there is plenty of that to be found on all platforms in this era. So I love this time period. Some of my favorite years to go back to and to discover new things in.
Absolutely. Well, fellas, both of you, thank you so much for taking so much time tonight and going through this with us. We could have gone another 5 rounds. We could have gone another 10 rounds. I think we still would have had a ton of fun and had plenty more games to talk about.
Yeah, this is super fun.
Yeah,
I've
Awesome.
never done anything like it before, and it's great.
it's a fantastic format, I think.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys coming, and I think we'll keep doing these drafts because it was a lot of fun. And what really stands out to me is looking at these lists just highlights what I always believed about this era of gaming, which is it's so diverse. Like, you have Shock Troopers and Riven and Kirby Superstar and Wipeout, and like, it's just these games are all so different from one another, and that's what made that generation gap era, like, developers cooking on the Super NES and the Genesis, and then experimenting so heavily on the PlayStation and 64. Like, it's just fabulous. So I'm really happy with how this came together. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All
It was
right.
great.
And where can our listeners find you guys doing what you do?
You can find us on YouTube on My Life in Gaming, and also Twitch TV / My Life in Gaming. We also stream on our YouTube channel every Sunday night from 8 to 11 Eastern time. It used to be 9.
Yeah.
It hasn't been for several years now.
And episodes come out when they come out.
Yeah,
And,
episodes come out.
We're also part of the DF Retro Super Show over on Digital Foundry. So that's a
Awesome.
Twice a month show every other week, talking about retro.
Yeah, it's a no AI zone.
Absolutely. We love it. All right, everybody. Did this bonus episode of Fun Factor top your draft rankings? How did we do? Who did the best? Leave us a review at Apple Podcast. Post it as a comment on YouTube. We will read the best ones on air. And hey, go ahead and pass this show around to all your friends like it's third grade and we're on the playground. Shout us out on Blue Sky at funfactorpod.com. YouTube, TikTok, everywhere else at Fun Factor Pod. Special thanks go to Millennium Falk for all our amazing original music. Check out his work at millenniumfalck.com. And unlike these old magazines, you won't have to wait a whole month for your next installment. We drop new episodes every 2 weeks. So go to funfactorpod.com to follow our show on your podcatcher of choice. Please consider becoming a member of Fun Factor Ultra. I promise, if you go to funfactorpod.com, you will not miss the sign-up widget on our homepage. If you do, you and we will have a maximum score in Fun Factor.